Rain hesitated, wanting to ask Anna to try again to trigger whatever strange phenomenon had occurred earlier. But one glance at her pale face was enough to reconsider. She needed rest, not further strain. "Anna," he asked gently, "how did you spend your childhood?" She paused, her eyes distant, as if sifting through memories. "I moved around a lot with my mother," she began. "We never stayed in one place for more than a year. Just as I'd start to settle in, we'd leave again." A faint bitterness crept into her voice. "No one wanted to be friends with me, and eventually I stopped trying. It hurt too much to leave people behind." Rain listened intently, a sense of vulnerability and loneliness emanating from Anna's words. Her constant moving wasn't normal. It sounded like her mother had been running from something. "Do you know why your mother kept moving?" he asked. Anna shook her head slowly, a shadow of confusion crossing her features. That small gesture made Rain's heart ache. She doesn't even know why her life was so unstable. Rain's thoughts turned to something his friend George had once mentioned. According to him, Anna's mother had been abducted at some point. The details were vague, but George claimed to have heard it from his father. Rain couldn't help but wonder if there was more to the story than Anna realized. "What about you, Rain?" Anna's soft voice broke through his thoughts. "You've changed a lot recently. You're taller, stronger, more full of life. It's like you're a completely different person." She gave him a sweet smile, her tone lightening. Rain scratched the back of his head, unsure of how to respond. "Different person?" He chuckled nervously. "It's probably the attendant training," he said, though even he wasn't entirely convinced by his own explanation. Anna smiled again, but looked visibly exhausted. Noticing this, Rain quickly escorted her back to her quarters to rest. Meanwhile, Rolls had been conducting his own investigation into Rain. What he had uncovered left him unsettled. After reviewing his earlier report to Michelle, Rolls realized he'd underestimated the young man. He discovered that Rain had achieved Junior Bounty Hunter certification through a recent mission, a detail that had gone unnoticed before. This revelation forced Rolls to reassess his evaluation of Rain. Previously, he'd seen the boy as an ordinary farmhand with a blank slate of a history. Born to a farmer in Flashgold Town, Rain had lived a quiet, uneventful life. And yet, in just over a month, this same boy had undergone a transformation worthy of legend. Rolls had initially dismissed him as a marginal talent, even though Rain had once been taught by Lady Kreia, a renowned genius knight of Meister County. But now, the facts painted a different picture. Rain's rapid growth was astonishing, even by prodigious standards. His intrigue deepened when he noticed that Rain no longer attended the attendant training sessions. After several discreet observations, Rolls confirmed that Rain had withdrawn entirely. This made things more complicated, with the Habsburg estate tightening security after the recent werewolf attack. Eliminating someone within the manor had become exceedingly risky. But Rain no longer lived there. Rolls' opportunity had presented itself. The previous night, after buying drinks for a drunken local at the Oak Tavern, Rolls learned Rain's home was near the southern edge of Flashgold Town, close to a forest. The location was remote, with few passers-by, a perfect setting for an ambush. Early the next morning, Rolls staked out the area, waiting for Rain to emerge. He didn't have to wait long. Within minutes, Rain stepped out of his house, carrying a sheepskin-wrapped, dual-handed greatsword, heading toward the clearing in the forest for his morning training. A smirk curled at the corners of Rolf's mouth. "Fortune favors me today." Discreetly, he followed Rain into the forest, keeping a safe distance. From behind a cluster of trees, Rolf observed as Rain began practicing the giant bear sword technique. The fluidity and precision of Rain's movements stunned him. This shouldn't be possible," Rolf muttered under his breath. From all the intelligence he'd gathered, Rain had never undergone formal knight or militia training. And yet, his swordsmanship was exceptional, far beyond what one could achieve in just over a month. Even the progress made by Master Dennis after drinking divine blood paled in comparison. If Rolf hadn't known better, he might have believed Rain was possessed by an evil god. The boy's potential rivaled that of Lady Kreia herself, a knight prodigy renowned throughout Meister County. "Such talent," Rolf whispered, his gaze flickering with admiration and regret. It's a shame he's already loyal to Kreia. Otherwise, he'd make a fine addition to the Norman family. Still, respect for talent compelled him to try. If Rain agreed to join the Normans, Rolse would spare him. If not, well, the forest was a convenient place for a tragedy to occur. Quietly, Rolse drew his long sword and coated its blade with a pale, green lethal poison. The substance glistened in the light, a deadly sheen. Rain, deep in his training, began to feel a faint unease. At first, the sensation was subtle, almost dismissible. But as he continued, the feeling intensified. His core skill, Danger Perception LV2, finally sounded an alarm. Someone was watching him. Worse, that someone had hostile intent. Rain paused mid-swing, his eyes narrowing as he scanned the trees. The presence was coming from his left rear. "Who's there?" Rain called sharply, turning toward the source. A figure emerged from the shadows, stepping out from behind a thick tree trunk. Dressed in hunting attire and armed with a sword, the man moved with an air of confidence. Rolse met Rain's gaze, his expression calm yet calculating. "Impressive," he said, his tone almost admiring. "Your perception is sharp, sharper than most. Truly, a talent worth envying." Rain tightened his grip on his great sword, every muscle in his body tensing as the man slowly approached. The tension in the clearing was palpable, a silent acknowledgement that the moment of confrontation had arrived. "Rain," a deep male voice echoed through the clearing, sharp and commanding. Rain's grip on his greatsword tightened as his eyes darted toward the source. "Who are you?" The man stepped forward, his figure partially concealed by the shadows of the trees. "You don't need to know who I am," he said, his voice dripping with authority. "Listen carefully. I'm offering you an opportunity. Pledge your allegiance to the Norman family, and you'll make the best decision of your life." Rain blinked, caught off guard. "A recruitment," he muttered under his breath. But the man's tone wasn't one of invitation. It was charity, a declaration from someone who clearly believed they were doing him a favor. Suppressing the unease creeping up his spine, Rain forced himself to speak calmly. "I appreciate the offer," he began carefully. "But forgive my ignorance. Are the Normans a great noble family from another county?" The man's expression darkened, his posture stiffening with indignation. "You dare insult the noble Baron Norman with such ignorance? The wrath of the Norman family is not something you can withstand." Rain's eyebrows rose. A baron? He had assumed this was some prominent earl or marquis family, given the pompous approach. But a lesser baron? He nearly scoffed. "They expect me to abandon Lady Kreia, a renowned knight, to serve a minor noble?" Suppressing his disdain, Rain straightened his expression, bowed slightly, and replied, "My apologies. Thank you for your offer, but I must decline." The man's lips curled into a disappointed smile, shaking his head as though mourning a lost opportunity. "A pity," he said, his voice dropping into something colder. "You've refused the one chance to save your life. A genius who could have risen high will fall here today. Truly regrettable." And with that, the tension snapped. Clang! The man drew his long sword and lunged forward with shocking speed. So fast. Rain's pupils contracted as he barely managed to raise his greatsword in time. The clash of steel reverberated through the forest, and the sheer force of the blow sent Rain stumbling 2 steps back. Failed recruitment turns to assassination? How bold, Rain muttered, his jaw tightening as he steadied his stance. The man before him, Rolse, studied him with narrowed eyes, his own surprise evident. "Interesting. To withstand my full strike and only retreat a few steps. I underestimated you." Rolse's gaze sharpened. Rain wasn't just skilled. His strength was nearing that of a Tier 3 knight attendant, a level of ability rarely achieved without years of training. This explained why the previous assassination attempt had failed. Still, Rolse thought his speed is his weakness. I can exploit that. Rain's mind raced. The opponent was faster, his movements precise and deadly. Worse, his agility far outmatched Rain's, making it difficult to keep up. If not for his danger perception LV2, he might have already been injured or worse. Time to adjust, Rain thought grimly. as he allocated one of his unused attribute points to agility. Agility increased to 10 points. Rolls lunged again, this time with a rapid thrusting attack. His sword became a blur, aiming straight for Rain's chest. Clang! Rain's greatsword intercepted the strike, the enhanced speed from his increased agility making the difference. Rolls' eyes flickered with surprise. He's faster now, he muttered under his breath. Though still slightly slower, Rain was no longer as vulnerable. But Rolls wasn't deterred. His longsword glowed faintly green. The poison he had applied earlier shimmered ominously in the light. One clean hit, and it's over. He pressed the attack, his strikes coming faster and more ferociously. Steel clashed against steel as Rain parried and blocked, his movements growing more fluid with each exchange. Cling! Clang! Clang! A shallow strike landed against Rain's chest, cutting through his outer jacket. Rolls smirked, certain the poison would take effect, but his satisfaction was short-lived. Huh? Plate armor. Beneath the cotton jacket, Rain wore brigandine armor, the metal strips within absorbing the blow. The realization threw Rolls off balance for a split second. His initial plan, to end the fight swiftly and retreat unnoticed, was now unraveling. What should have been an easy kill had turned into a prolonged, intense battle. This is taking too long, Rolls thought, irritation creeping into his mind. The forest wasn't far from the main road, and prolonged combat could draw unwanted attention. Time to finish this. Rain, too, was feeling the pressure. His opponent's relentless strikes and superior speed were taxing, and his mind worked furiously to find a way to turn the tide. Their swordsmanship is deadly efficient, and his experience is leagues above mine, Rain thought, narrowly dodging another thrust. Even after boosting my agility, I'm still behind. If I make one mistake, I'm done. His eyes flicked to the faint green glow on the longsword. Poison. If not for the brigandine, I'd already be dead. Rain clenched his teeth. Holding back his last attribute point now would be suicide. Agility increased to 11 points. With his agility heightened, Rain felt his movements sharpen and his reactions quicken. As Rolls lunged again, Rain shifted his stance, parrying the thrust with newfound precision. Clang! This time, the clash forced Rolls to reevaluate. How is he still improving mid-fight? He thought, his annoyance growing. Rain's confidence surged. For the first time in the battle, he felt like he could keep up. But Rolls wasn't done yet. Enough games, Rolls muttered, his expression hardening. His right hand tightened on the hilt of his longsword as he launched into his ultimate move. The blade blurred, splitting into 3 distinct arcs, each aimed at a vital point: Rain's forehead, neck, and chest. Swift sword triple strike. The Dragon Guard's secret technique. Rain's instincts screamed as his danger perception flared, the air around him buzzing with lethal intent. The fight was reaching its climax. Rain braced himself, knowing that the next move could decide everything.
Hey, welcome to Firescale Audiobooks. If you enjoy our audiobooks, please consider subscribing to the channel. Also, feel free to share your review in the comments section below.
In the blink of an eye, Rain instantly deduced that this must be the opponent's ace in the hole. Utilizing ultra-fast sword speed to pierce 3 vital points on his body, the sword moved so quickly that afterimages appeared on his retina, which is why he saw the illusion of 3 swords thrusting at the same time. But in Rain's heart, there was no fear. Instead, he felt excitement. This move was the enemy's trump card, his own crisis, but on the other hand, also his own opportunity. Although the opponent was extremely fast, having fully committed to this killer move meant changing direction, as before had become exceedingly difficult for him. It was just like a sprinter at full speed trying to come to an immediate stop, which was nearly impossible to achieve. In a split second, a fierce determination flashed in the corner of Rain's eye. He didn't execute the defensive stance, the only defensive move in the giant bear sword technique. Instead, he chose to counterattack. Strength burst. Rain's entire body suddenly swelled, his height shooting from around 1.7 meters to approximately 1.9 meters, with muscles all over his body taut and bulging. Breaking limit. Are you a proper knight? Rolls cried out in shock, unable to help but exclaim. This caused Rolf's attacking momentum to falter, and the power of his killer move greatly diminished. Of course, Rolf couldn't be blamed. Rain's strength burst was too similar to that of an official knight performing breaking limit. Anyone watching would have thought Rain was a formal knight in the act of breaking limit. Seizing the opportunity, while the opponent hesitated ever so slightly, Rain's chest puffed up, the veins in his neck protruding, with neck muscles twisting and expanding like those of a python. This set off alarm bells in Rolf's mind, and he instinctively began to retreat at high speed. The execution of his ace move, Swift Sword Triple Strike, thus came to an abrupt end. No wonder Rolf made such a decision. Originally, his 3 strikes were aimed at Rain's vital areas, but with Rain's drastically changed physique, even if the stabs went through, they probably wouldn't be able to end Rain's life instantly, only leaving him injured but not dead. Yet Rain's present physical form was too horrifying. Rolf immediately sensed that Rain's follow-up attack would definitely be thunderous. Rolf didn't want to trade life for life. So, the only option was to retreat. But having just charged forward at high speed, retreating immediately was not so simple. However, Rolf lived up to his level as a prospective knight with powerful body control. The inertia of his body went from moving forward to retreating in barely half a second of stillness on the spot. But in that brief, less than half-second time frame, the tables turned. With a great roar, Rain's mouth opened wide, and a raging torrent of breath blasted out like a cannonball. A massive wave of sound, centered around Rain's gaping maw, swept out like a tsunami in all directions. This kind of area of effect sound attack was clearly something Rolf couldn't avoid. And with the distance between him and Rain, the strength of the sound wave could be said to be at its peak. Rolf only felt a strong gust of wind blow against his face, causing his skin to violently tremble. At the same time, his eardrums felt a stabbing pain, his head instantly buzzing, and after the sound wave swept past Rolf, it kept spreading out at high speed, causing nearby trees to rustle loudly and leaves to rain down. Although Rolf was only affected by the sound attack for a very brief moment, merely a fraction of a second, by the time he could react once again, he found himself seemingly unable to move. Instantly, he felt an intense pain in his abdomen. Turns out, as Rain let out that deafening roar, his bulging muscles propelled his hands to sweep the fine steel greatsword at high speed across Rolf's waist and abdomen, leaving behind in midair a beautiful silver semicircle. Time seemed to stand still for a few seconds. Rolf lowered his head. Whoosh! A large amount of fresh blood flowed out, along with intestines and other organs. Rolf couldn't help but let out a scream of agony. Thump! Rolf dropped the knight's long sword and knelt on the ground, desperately trying to cover the long wound with his hands and continuously trying to stuff the fallen intestines back inside. Although he had been through many battles, he had always been the victor. Of course, he had never experienced such pain, as well as the fear of impending death. Such an injury, even if he were a knight, would be too much to bear, let alone that he wasn't one. Soon, as life drained away, Rolf's movements slowed down. He lifted his head, staring intently at Rain. His mouth moved as if he wanted to say something, but in the end, nothing came out, and he collapsed to the ground. The look of unwillingness in his eyes also faded. Rain was also suffering, supporting himself with the fine steel greatsword in one hand and clutching his chest with the other. He began to cough violently. Cough! Cough! The first time using the Roaring Strike special move, I exerted too much force. It seems to have hurt my lungs a bit. NOV-LB //JNN. But luckily, the results were significant. Rain, looking at Rolf's corpse, also felt somewhat sentimental. The opponent was completely superior to me, with both strength and agility likely around 13 or 14 points. Even after I increased my agility by 2 points, I was still firmly suppressed by him. Without the insight into the special move, Roaring Strike, this battle could have been very grim. This intensified the sense of urgency in Rain's heart once more. Throughout the entire battle until its end, there were still many questions in Rain's mind. Where did this Norman Baron family come from? Refuse to be recruited, then must die? It can't be that drastic, can it? So, how exactly did I get involved with them? After thinking for a while, Rain decided he might take the time to carefully inquire with Hamilton later. After all, he had been transferred from the county town, and he should be quite familiar with the major noble families within the Meister County. If the territory of this so-called Norman Baron family is in Meister County, then Hamilton should probably be able to provide some useful information. Without any hesitation, Rain stepped forward and cautiously delivered another stab to the body. Once he confirmed that the other party was truly dead, Rain quickly bent down and started to search, soon finding a small black square bottle in the man's pouch. This design. Could it be lethal poison? Then, Rain found a small bag of gold coins, about a dozen gold coins and over 20 silver coins in the man's pouch. The last item was an exceptionally neatly folded piece of parchment that, judging by its yellowed surface and slightly whitened edges from abrasion, seemed to have some age and had been frequently perused by its owner. Rain didn't open it immediately, because the roaring strike he had just used made a deafening sound, and even with the barrier of the dense woods, Rain believed it had already reached the nearby road. Thus, as soon as Rain finished searching the body, he immediately dragged it deeper into the woods and slightly modified the battle marks on the scene with his great sword to cover them up. After giving it some thought, Rain decided not to pick up the opponent's weapon. Because the pommel of the opponent's knight's longsword had a distinct pattern, Rain wouldn't be able to use it even if he took it back, and melting it down at the blacksmith's place was equally risky. So, it was better to leave it. Soon, the smell of blood would attract wild animals, and for them, this would be a feast. Having done all this, Rain turned and walked towards home. "Brother, why did you come back so early today?" Anna, who was playing with Cookie, looked up to see her brother Rain returning and asked with slight surprise. At that moment, Anna also looked up towards Rain. Seeing Anna's rosy complexion, Rain knew that after a night's rest, she had recovered from the fatigue caused by using the amulet yesterday. While something came up, cough, cough, Rain patted little Anna's head. "By the way, Anna, could you come with me for a moment?" "HM? Of course." Anna nodded and stood up, but when she took a closer look at Rain, she noticed something amiss. Rain seemed to have a pale complexion and had just coughed. As Rain passed by her, she also detected a faint smell of blood. This scent was deeply ingrained in her memory, for her home had also been filled with this same smell that night. This immediately made Anna tense. Upon entering the room with Rain, Anna asked anxiously, "Rain, are you injured?" "What? How did you know, Anna?" Rain was initially surprised, but then, looking down at his damaged cotton armor, he immediately understood. "It's nothing serious. Just a minor injury, but I might need to bother you to touch that amulet again." At the moment, Rain was also unsure whether the amulet had a limit on the number of times it could be used. Or could it be that after consuming that mysterious energy, the amulet needed a certain amount of time to absorb some kind of external energy before it could be used again? "Yes, no problem at all. I'll try." Anna nodded emphatically, grateful for the rare opportunity to be of help to Rain. "Relax a little, I'm really fine." Cough. Seeing Rain cough while insisting he was fine, Anna couldn't help but give him a reproachful look. Immediately taking the wooden amulet Rain handed her, Anna focused her mind and gently touched it. Sure enough, the amulet emitted a soft green glow again. This time, Anna felt it was a bit easier to control than the last. The green light quickly leapt from the amulet and flew towards Rain's body. Instantly, the green light intensified. Enveloped in the green light, Rain felt as if a cool, soothing stream was flowing into his body from the outside, quickly coating the damaged capillaries and alveoli of his lungs. An exceptionally cool and refreshing sensation spread from within. Seconds later, Rain felt his injuries had fully healed, and he no longer felt the urge to cough. This once again made Rain marvel at the miraculous nature of this energy. It also proved that the wooden amulet could indeed be a magical item used repeatedly. However, when Rain looked up, he saw Anna's complexion had turned pale again, just like the night before. "Anna, I'm sorry." "Don't say that, Rain. I'm really happy to help you, truly." By the way, are you feeling better now? Of course, I've fully recovered. Thank you, Anna. Rain smiled and patted his chest, indicating he was completely healed. After sending Anna back to her room to rest, Rain curiously opened the sheepskin scroll. Upon opening it, Rain was somewhat astonished. The top was inscribed with bold letters, Dragon Empire Military Swordsmanship. Below the text were 7 separate diagrams depicting a stick figure performing various sword techniques. Further down were 2 slightly more complex diagrams, also showing a stick figure executing a type of sword technique. The stick figures in the book all had one-handed swords. They differed drastically in style from the giant bear sword technique Rain was practicing. After scrutinizing the images, Rain's expression initially showed both shock and delight, but soon he began to furrow his brow in thought. It turned out that the 7 patterns represented basic sword moves with a simple style, somewhat straightforward. Yet upon closer inspection, they also contained a sense of sharpness and even brutality. Because the sword moves targeted the critical points of an enemy, it was no wonder they were called military swordsmanship, where simplicity implied ease of learning, and the ruthless sharpness was aimed at quickly dispatching foes. The 2 slightly more complex patterns at the bottom were secret techniques derived from military swordsmanship. One was the swift sword triple strike performed by the middle-aged man earlier, and the other was another move called flash strike. Without a doubt, imperial military swordsmanship with secret techniques was more than 10 times as precious as the plain imperial military swordsmanship. Although the military swordsmanship of the Dragon Empire was also an outstanding swordsmanship, without secret techniques, it couldn't be considered true, extraordinary swordsmanship. If Rain had only discovered the 7 basic military sword moves, he might not have been inclined to learn them immediately. But upon realizing the existence of 2 secret techniques, his desire to learn them grew incredibly strong. He had felt the power of the swift sword triple strike personally, and if his opponent had been determined to trade injury for injury, even if Rain had been lucky enough to win, he surely would have sustained serious injuries. According to the description, flash strike was even more powerful and equally more difficult to perform, seeming to require the capability of a formal knight. This left Rain rather covetous. He decided to try learning them later that evening. It was then that Rain had the time to check the system notifications. Your skilled giant bear sword technique has improved. Experience plus 267. You have experienced a battle. Night Watchman professional experience points plus 131. Although a normal fight wasn't lengthy, totally at most around 2 minutes. But every second was a precarious balance between life and death, so the generous experience granted was to be expected. Rain's giant bear sword technique LV4, 298/1000. Progress crossed halfway, reaching giant bear sword technique LV4, 565/1000. Rain then flipped back to the attributes page on the system panel. Name, Rain Carlin. Profession, Blacksmith LV2, 0 out of 300, /Night Watchman LV3, 161 for 500, /Dog Trainer LV2, 31 out of 300. Constitution 10. Strength, 11. Agility, 11. Spirit, 11. Remaining attribute points, 0. Remaining skill points, 0. Now his attributes were very balanced, just 1 point shy in Constitution from reaching 11 in each attribute. Afterward, Rain folded his arms and paced back and forth in the room, deep in thought, reflecting on the battle he had just fought, summarizing the gains and losses. Meister County City. Within a manor that belonged to either a noble or a wealthy merchant, the storeroom on the second level below ground had clearly undergone expansion, its area comparable to an average noble's banquet hall. While the walls weren't graced with fine murals or richly decorated, they were carved with mysterious and brutal ritual scenes and various bizarre monsters, giving the entire hall a dark and eerie atmosphere. In such a spacious hall, only 2 mountain-shaped wall lamps were lit, their flames struggling to burn, but still unable to light up the overly large hall sufficiently. At that moment, a deep voice emerged from the center of the dimly lit hall. How much longer until the Black Flame prayer ceremony? High Priest, it will take about another month, answered a tall figure clad in knight armor, standing in the middle of the underground hall. Why say tall? That was because the figure was over 2 meters and 20 centimeters tall, but even encased in armor, his limbs were very slender. To others, his legs looked like the long, thin thighs of a grasshopper, thin yet extremely capable of leaping. Moreover, the weapon he carried on his back was also weird. It was a scythe-like serrated curved blade about 2 meters long. However, he clearly wasn't the highest-ranking person in the underground hall, as he was reporting with a slight bow to someone sitting in the shadows, referred to as the High Priest, that n/o/vel/b// and c//om. We are running out of time. I have felt the Lords will gradually awakening. The Black Flame Prayer ceremony must be held as soon as possible. Half a month. Hold the ceremony within half a month to coincide with the Lord's further resurrection. This, understood, High Priest. However, if we intensify the acquisition of materials, it will inevitably cause some disturbances and further attention from the Empire's officials. Those greedy nobles, it's time for them to be of use. The High Priest's tone was deep and slightly mocking. High Priest, speaking of those nobles, it seems they are getting restless. The shadow waved his hand and said, "Take another 12 bottles of divine blood to appease them. It's best if you can get those nobles to cooperate with you. If they look for excuses to shirk, at least make them turn a blind eye. These next few days, make sure the gangs below expedite their work and at the same time, raise the bounty. Lastly, be ready to conduct a blood sacrifice if we do not make it in time." A blood sacrifice. High Priest, the last incident in Monheim town was quite significant. It's said that the sword-bearers are paying close attention. The High Priest waved his withered right hand and said, "I have already felt the Lord's response to my prayers. Go and get in touch with Alonso, as the most eager nobleman to participate in the Black Flame ceremony and receive the Lord's blessing. He ought to do something. As you command, High Priest. By the way, have people investigated how the hyena gang was destroyed? Is it the doing of the sword-bearers?" As he mentioned sword-bearers, the High Priest's voice became noticeably more solemn. No, according to what we observed at the scene, most of the hyena gang members died of severe poisoning, a method uncharacteristic of the sword-bearers. Additionally, inside the gang's stronghold in the county town, several dozen materials were left untouched. If it was the sword-bearers, they would not have ended things hastily. They always planned thoroughly before acting and would surely have rescued these people. It must have been an act of vengeance or a random incident. Perhaps the hyena gang offended some wandering knight or a certain noble. It's just, the marks on the wounds are quite unusual, not like those made by daggers or short swords, but rather resembling those made by great swords or axes. The shadow nodded and said, "As long as it wasn't the sword-bearers, that's all that matters. Weapons naturally vary with the individual. Good that it wasn't the sword-bearers. Speed things up, otherwise by the time the Empire reacts, we might never have such a good opportunity again. As you command, High Priest. I will see to it right away." The tall figure briefly bowed and then turned to leave the underground hall. At that moment, only the High Priest remained in the hall. Then, under the dim light of a distant wall lamp, one could vaguely see that the body, shrouded under his black robe, was abnormally bloated, presenting a stark contrast to his withered arms. That afternoon, Rain seriously began practicing the imperial military swordsmanship. The woodland near his home was naturally no longer an option. But fortunately, the army swordsmanship used a one-handed sword, which meant Rain only needed a small space to practice. After thinking for a moment, Rain asked Anna for the key and went alone with the night watchman's issued bastard sword to Anna's house next door. After slightly moving the table and chairs, it made for a decent indoor practice area. Since Rain had a foundation in swordsmanship at level 4, 578/1000, he picked up the army swordsmanship faster than he had anticipated. Before long, a system prompt appeared. "You have practiced the Imperial Army Sword Technique. Insight increased. You have comprehended a new skill, Imperial Army Sword Technique. Your skill, Imperial Army Sword Technique, has improved. Experience +1. Detected that the host has been practicing single-handed sword technique. Would you like to merge it into the Imperial Army sword technique? This merge will consume 0 skill points. Note: after merging, the basic sword technique will no longer be displayed on the panel, but the host can still use the related sword techniques. Note: after the merge, the Imperial Army sword technique will absorb the advantages of the basic sword technique and improve them. The experience you gained in basic sword technique will be converted into the experience for the improved Imperial Army sword technique at a certain ratio. The first 3 prompts hadn't changed, but the fourth and completely different system prompt clearly caught Rain's attention. Both are one-handed sword techniques, so they can be merged. No wonder I didn't see this prompt when I was practicing the two-handed giant bear sword technique before. Also, a merge usually requires consuming skill points. Is it because there is a certain lineage connection between the basic sword technique and the Imperial Army sword technique? Or is it because the basic sword technique is too basic, thus it shows 0 points? Several questions naturally popped into Rain's mind. Clearly, if it had required skill points, Rain would likely not have chosen to merge, because the current 1 skill point, whether used on breathing techniques or the giant bear sword technique, would bring significant improvements to Rain. Of course, since this time the merge cost was 0, Rain pondered briefly and then chose yes. Soon, the sword bearer panel's basic sword technique level 4, 578/1000, vanished, replaced by Imperial Army sword technique level 2, 128-300. Level 4 beyond halfway in basic sword technique, barely converted to less than half of level 2 in Imperial Army sword technique. But this already made Rain's face light up with joy, as it at least saved him 10 days to half a month of tough training. Almost simultaneously, some fragmented memories about practicing Imperial Army sword technique flashed through Rain's mind and gradually integrated into his muscle memory. Shortly, Rain sharply noticed that the Imperial Army sword technique he executed was slightly different from that in the scroll, with more cunning angles and seemingly greater power. This must be what the system prompt meant by saying that after merging, the Imperial Army sword technique had absorbed the strengths of the basic sword technique and improved upon them. However, it must be because the basic sword technique was too elementary, the improvement was very slight. If Rain's perceptions hadn't been exceptionally sharp, he wouldn't have noticed it at all. Just then, a crisp voice called from the door, "Brother, Uncle Waylon has come to see you." Upon hearing this, Rain immediately stopped practicing the Imperial Army sword technique and opened the door to step outside. The middle-aged man in black leather armor, standing right there, was the familiar captain of the night watchman, Waylon. Seeing Rain come out, Bowie smiled sweetly at Waylon and bounced back to dig in the small courtyard with Anna, along with the periodic appearances of Cookie the dog, creating a warm atmosphere. "Rain, why are you at Anna's house?" Waylon curiously glanced behind the door and asked. "Ah, Captain Waylon, is there something you need?" All at once, Waylon looked deeply at Rain and said, "Rain, I have some good news for you. The hyena gang of County Town was wiped out. Dog King Cole and a number of the gang's key members were found dead in their lair, the Dog Fighting Manor, 3 days ago," Waylon narrated slowly. Waylon had considered whether the young man before him, who was only a few years older than his daughter, might have done it. But after some thought, he concluded it probably wasn't him. Although Dog King, Cole's body had been burned to ashes and was unrecognizable. The deaths of the other gang members suggested they had all perished from severe poisoning. This approach was likely the work of a well-trained assassin. Therefore, there was a high probability that the hyena gang, used to their arrogant ways, had inadvertently offended some noble who then hired a hitman to exterminate them thoroughly. "Oh, Captain Waylon, do you know who did it?" Rain asked, feigning surprise, even though he had a clear idea. "Not sure, but according to my colleagues in County Town, the investigation at the scene suggests that it was the work of a professional killer. Many of the gang members and dogs in the manor that weren't burnt died from severe poisoning," Waylon explained, shaking his head. Hearing this, Rain breathed a sigh of relief. Coating my weapons with poison was initially just to increase the efficiency of the kills. I hadn't expected it to also mislead the investigation. Next time, if necessary, I can continue to use this method. After chatting for a few more moments, Waylon remembered the purpose of his visit and said, "Right, Rain, if you're not busy, come with me to the town's administration office. Lord Hamilton is waiting for you in his office." "Okay, let's go now." Rain nodded immediately. He also had questions he wanted to ask Lord Hamilton. When Rain arrived at Hamilton's office, as soon as he entered, Rain noticed that Sheriff Hamilton, although a formal knight, looked exhausted, rubbing his brow with one hand while flipping through case files with the other. Seeing Rain come in, Hamilton nodded and said, "Rain, take a seat. Things have been a bit off lately. There are too many security incidents, along with some mysterious events involving cults, monsters, and so on. Even the seasonal winds and the Church of the Ocean Goddess in County Town are constantly preoccupied." Hamilton complained offhandedly. "By the way, Rain, the reason I called you here is because your night watchman paperwork has all been processed." Hamilton smiled and handed Rain a circular silver badge, 2 sizes larger than a gold coin. Rain took it and examined it carefully. On the front was an upper body image of holding a torch in one hand and a sword in the other, with a bow slung over the back, while the back was akin to a bounty hunter's badge, also inscribed with Rain Carlin and a long string of numbers. Rain quickly determined that the badge was primarily made of pure silver, mixed with a small amount of other metals to prevent it from being too soft. This represents the elite badge of the Night Watchman. Generally, it takes a common night watchman about 2 years to accumulate enough merit points to be promoted to the elite level, Hamilton said with a smile. "Thank you, Lord Hamilton," Rain said with a happy expression, bowing slightly to show his gratitude. "You don't need to thank me. It was just a small effort on my part. You're the one who has worked hard. This is your deserved reward. Right here's the exchange booklet. It lists all the items you're currently eligible to exchange for. You might want to take a look," Hamilton said, handing over a small booklet to Rain. "Also, you should have over 100 merit points." "Let me see, Rain. Knowles, Murlocs, your total is 119 merit points," Hamilton stated after revealing a number. "Thank you, sir," Rain said, unable to determine just how much the number of merit points he would allow him to exchange, but guessed it wouldn't be anything particularly useful since it was only over 100. Rain opened the booklet Hamilton gave him. On the cover of the booklet were the bold words, "Dragon Empire Security and Guard Troops Merit Points Exchange Booklet, Non-Commissioned." Yeah, isn't it supposed to be exclusively for the Night Watchman? Rain looked up at Hamilton, a touch of surprise in his expression. Of course not. The Night Watchmen, constables, including the city guard, all belong to the category of the Empire's security and defense forces. So merit points are universal, Hamilton explained with a laugh. "I see." Rain realized, finding the system reasonable, and so he began to leaf through the pamphlet. At the elite level, the redeemable items include potions, weapons. Rain quickly found that his 119 merit points were neither a lot nor a little. Basically, his merit points were enough to exchange for 4 fine steel greatswords. Wow! You can even exchange for Dragon Empire military swordsmanship and the corresponding military breathing method. Is it really 1,200 points for these merit points? This made Rain a bit astonished. After all, he only had 119 points, not even a tenth of what was needed. It was hard to know if any of the elite members of the Night Watchmen had successfully redeemed the Dragon Empire military swordsmanship and corresponding military breathing method. However, the Dragon Empire military swordsmanship and the military breathing method could be exchanged separately, requiring 400 and 800 merit points, respectively. Additionally, the military breathing method was the only breathing technique available in the exchange booklet. That is to say, the Dragon Empire military swordsmanship he had obtained from that middle-aged man was actually worth 400 merit points. Indeed, a counterkill like that was the fastest way to make money. Unfortunately, he did not see the black Kirin oil or anything related to the giant bear breathing technique available for exchange. He wasn't sure if it was because his elite level in the Night Watchman wasn't high enough, or for some other reason. However, as Clea mentioned, the giant bear breathing technique was widely disseminated, with many noble families passing it down and studying it. So in theory, the Imperial military would naturally have carried out research into it. In that case, it was probably because he was of too low rank. "By the way, my lord, does the Night Watchman have a specialized training ground?" Rain asked. For him, improving his strength was always the most important thing. The woodland near his house, he definitely wasn't suitable for going there in the short term. And Anna's house was fine for 1 or 2 makeshift training sessions, but it wasn't a long-term solution. Of course, it's right behind the administrative office of the small town, Hamilton said, standing up and laughing as if he had thought of something, brushing off his previous weariness. Come, I'll take you to see it. And by the way, it's a good opportunity to introduce you to the others. At this time, except for those who were on night duty yesterday, most of them should be at the training grounds. After leaving the office and making 2 consecutive right turns, Rain followed Hamilton to a training ground. Not very large, just a few hundred square meters, but it was equipped with various dummies, targets, and all kinds of longswords. At the moment, many people were training on their own here, and after sweeping the area with a glance, Rain noticed that the majority, about 60%, were practicing archery. "My lord! Lord Hamilton! Constable, my lord!" Upon seeing Hamilton's arrival, the training members of the night watchmen, constables, and others all stopped their activities and greeted him, ben/o/vel/b/c/.c/om. "This is Rain, a new member who joined our night watchman today. Everyone, please make his acquaintance," Hamilton introduced. "Right, Rain. To let everyone gauge your strength, go ahead, use all your power, and throw a punch right here." Hamilton turned his head and, with a smile, extended his palm towards Rain. Actually, Hamilton had always been curious about Rain's strength and potential. Since the previous occasion when Rain had managed to stop that ferally transformed werewolf, Hamilton had been harboring this thought. But firstly, at that time, he was hindered by his own injuries, and secondly, Rain had not officially joined the Night Watchman, so Hamilton hadn't spoken up. But now that Rain was an official member of the Night Watchman and directly under his command, Hamilton naturally thought it was time to test this young man whom he regarded highly. Hearing his superior make such a statement, the night watchmen beside him all looked at Rain with considerable curiosity. Some of the night watchmen had seen Rain during the last battle with the frenzied jackalweers, while others had not. But now, they all crowded around, looking forward to the young man's performance with great anticipation. Caught off guard by Lord Hamilton's sudden request, Rain was startled at first, but the next second he smiled, nodded, and happily agreed. Of course, Lord Hamilton. He finally understood why, when he asked about the training grounds of the night watchman, Lord Hamilton's mood lifted. It seemed that at that moment, the other party had already thought of testing his strength. But inside, Rain thought to himself that he definitely couldn't use Strength Burst at full capacity. Otherwise, his strength of 22 points would probably exceed even that of Lord Hamilton, a formal knight. Injuring one's own superior on the first day of employment. That approach. As he imagined that scene, Rain couldn't help but shake his head slightly. "However, I did manage to barely fend off an injured frenzied jackalweer last time. My current base strength of 11 points is of course still a bit weak, so I should only use about 30% of my strength burst. A little surprise from my superior is still necessary." Having made his decision, Rain positioned himself to throw a punch. The next second, with a push from his left foot, his figure flashed past everyone, and he threw an extended stance straight punch that hit hard against the palm of Lord Hamilton's outstretched right hand. Thump! A dull sound of a fist colliding with a palm echoed. As his punch landed, Rain felt that Lord Hamilton's large hand was like layers of tough leather glued together, absorbing the impact of his punch, making it dissipate until it was invisible. Lord Hamilton controlled the rebound of his strength to a very small degree, rendering Rain almost unable to feel any force from the hand. This delicate control over strength, signifying a higher and more profound mastery of one's own muscles and more, was beyond Rain's current reach. "Very good. Rain, your knighthood potential is even better than I imagined." After feeling the power of Rain's punch, the corners of Lord Hamilton's mouth twitched slightly with a mix of shock and delight, and his eyes shone keenly as if he had found a treasure. There was still a tingling sensation in his palm. Rain's abilities have actually improved so quickly. Lord Hamilton's right elbow bent slightly. His arm trembled at an almost imperceptible high speed several times, and then he placed his hands behind his back. Among the onlooking night watchmen, There were those who recognized talent when they saw it. From Rain's movement speed to the crisp sound of his punch, they could tell the young man before them was extraordinary. And their superior's surprised expression confirmed their suspicions. Lord Hamilton looked around and then turned to Rain. "Come, let's go to my office." When the two returned to the office, Lord Hamilton took the initiative to ask, "You should be practicing the giant bear breathing technique, right?" Rain nodded. Even if he didn't admit it, with Lord Hamilton's knowledge, he would have guessed it already. "Your current strength has already reached the level of a Tier 3 Knight Attendant. Given your rate of progress, you'll probably be able to challenge a full-fledged knight in about half a year. Such a praiseworthy talent. However, the advanced magic potion will be a big problem. There's too little time, and it's highly unlikely that you'll be able to accumulate enough merit points through the tasks of the Night Watchman to exchange for an advanced magic potion." Lord Hamilton seemed to think of something, frowning as he spoke. "This matter, it seems, can only be resolved by your mentor." "Lord Hamilton, could you talk about the advancement magic potion?" Rain had been wanting to ask this question. Previously, Clea had avoided the topic, and Lord Hamilton had only mentioned it in passing when discussing merit points, without going into detail. "Hasn't your teacher Perez told you about it?" Lord Hamilton looked at Rain with a slightly surprised expression. After hearing this, Rain paused slightly. "My own teacher?" Then it dawned on Rain. The fact that my breathing technique and swordsmanship were actually taught by Lady Clea, I have never affirmed this to Lord Hamilton. So, in his mind, he has always imagined that my teacher was the renowned, dual-handed greatsword expert, Lord Perez. Although Lady Clea had mentioned that it would be best to keep the matter of her teaching me the breathing technique and sword skills to myself. But the problem now is I have already been subjected to internal strife from within the Habu's family. Looking at the current situation, the Night Watchman, one of the official powers I've joined in the Empire, might be the only force that could possibly make them think twice before acting against me. Therefore, gaining the recognition of my current superior, Lord Hamilton, is quite crucial. If I keep hiding this, and once he casually asks Perez about this matter when they meet, it would be bad to get exposed instead. After some thought, Rain decided that there was no longer any need to keep this from Lord Hamilton. On the contrary, revealing this secret would most likely be seen as an act of goodwill in his eyes. "About that, Lord Hamilton, the truth is I'm not very familiar with Meister Perez. My breathing technique and sword skills were actually imparted to me by Lady Clea," said Rain, touching his nose and speaking somewhat sheepishly. "What?" Upon hearing Rain's response, Lord Hamilton was dumbfounded. "You clever rascal, to think you've hidden this from me for so long." The next second, something seemed to dawn on Lord Hamilton, and he burst into laughter. "No wonder you don't even know about the advancement magic potion. It seems that when Lady Clea left Meister County, you must have just started your training and your talents weren't fully manifested yet. Otherwise, she would have certainly left some special arrangements. Or perhaps, she might have even taken you with her to the Imperial City." Imperial City? Upon hearing these words, Rain was stunned. The capital of the Dragon Empire was a place of much aspiration. If he had the chance, he would definitely want to see it. In addition, Lord Hamilton quickly understood the reason why Rain had been targeted for assassination the last time. "No wonder you were the target of an assassin's attempt last time." Speaking of this matter, Rain casually asked, "By the way, Lord Hamilton, could you briefly talk about the heirs of Count Habs? Other than Lady Clea?" Lord Hamilton nodded and said, "Rain, I understand what you're getting at. Count Hab's eldest son, Alonso, how should I put it? He strikes me as a rather obsessed individual. Moreover, he seems to be involved with some cult activities, which has already drawn the attention of the higher-ups. n/o/b/b/and.c//om. So, regarding your situation, it's not convenient for me to intervene. Even if I did, the outcome might not be as expected." Lord Hamilton, apart from this eldest son, doesn't he have a second son? Because Rain was puzzled. Why had Lord Hamilton directly mentioned Alonso? Didn't Clea have two older brothers? Lord Hamilton looked momentarily startled, then shook his head and said, It couldn't be Descartes because he is currently at the Imperial Military Headquarters. How could he care about someone so insignificant as you, far away in Meister County? Besides, Descartes has always had a good relationship with Clea, so why would he harm you? What? Rain's brow raised in surprise, learning of this new piece of information. It seems certain that the assassin must have been sent by Alonso. Excellent. This trip hasn't been wasted. I've finally figured out who it was that tried to harm me. What's that saying? Never mind. We'll see how it goes. Meanwhile, Habsburg Manor. Inside a study on the second floor of the castle, Dennis was reading the revenues and expenditures of the family estate. However, after only a few glances, he furrowed his brows, seemingly unable to continue his interest. Knock, knock, knock. At that moment, a rhythmic knocking sound arose. This slightly pleased Dennis, as it seemed Rolls must have completed his task and returned. He thought about the time, which should be about right, because today was the final deadline set by Michel. Come in. Why is it you? But to Dennis's surprise, it was not Rolls who entered but Tina. Knowing Tina, she never appeared before him unless called. Master Dennis, Lord Rolls told me if he didn't make it back by sunrise today, to let you know the task failed. Tina was clearly frightened of Dennis, not daring to lift her head as she spoke with her gaze lowered. What? Say that again. Dennis abruptly stood up, his face contorted with a ferocious expression as he bellowed. Rue, Lord Rolls said. Tina, already terrified of Dennis, stuttered under his murderous gaze, struggling to speak clearly. After much effort, Tina managed to repeat the words once again. The study then fell into a long silence. Only the heavy breathing persisted, growing more rapid. Damn it, are you joking with me? Rolls is battle-hardened. How could he possibly fail a mission? Damn it, especially against merely a farmer's son. Dennis took a while to digest the meaning of Tina's words. The opposite Tina trembled in fear, but she picked up on one term, farmer's son. So, a farmer's son could upset the noble young master to this extent. It seems... Tina screamed as she was suddenly grabbed by the hair and pulled over, then harshly slammed onto the large desk. Slah! Tina felt a chill over her body as her clothes were ripped open. Immediately after, a sharp pain shot through her body. After a series of intense panting, Dennis seemed somewhat tired. But as he vented, he appeared to regain his composure. Looking at Tina, who was gently sobbing with bruises of blue and purple, Dennis coldly stated, Repeat exactly what Rolls said to you before he left, without missing a single word. Lord Rolls said. Tina's words were nearly identical to before, and Dennis could not glean any useful information from them. How exactly did Rolls fail? Could Clea have left that peasant any treasures? Where did the two of them fight? If Rolls failed his mission, did he divulge any information to the other party? Moreover, with Rolls' failure, I will certainly face my father's rebuke, and I might not even be able to stay at Habsburg Manor any longer. Lastly, it looks like this month's divine blood quota is gone. Dennis thought momentarily and realized his mind was swamped with a plethora of vexing problems. And the cause of this passive situation was that person called. Dennis rubbed his temples. He had always been called a farmer's son, and suddenly, he forgot the other person's name. All right, he remembered now it was Rain. Dennis wanted to send someone to investigate, but the few subordinates he had left were all much weaker than Rolls. After thinking it over, he decided against sending anyone to look for Rolls' whereabouts. After pacing back and forth in the room for a while, Dennis returned to his desk and sat down blankly. After further contemplation, he picked up a quill and swiftly scribbled on a piece of paper, soon producing a sincerely worded letter of apology. The first sentence began with, Dear Father. At this point, the situation here had somewhat spiraled out of Dennis's control. Especially with Rolls' death, he didn't believe it was an incident that could be kept hidden. Instead of hiding it, it was better to report to his father and ask for help promptly. Since Rolls was his father's favorite, it was highly likely his father would send someone to investigate. By that time, Rain would naturally come to their attention. Flashgold Town Governmental Hall. Inside Hamilton's office, Rain thought for a moment and realized he had figured out the assassin's matter. But what connection did he have with that middle-aged man, the Norman family? Just as Rain was about to ask, Hamilton began discussing the advanced magic potion on his own. This caused Rain to focus and listen carefully. Rain, regarding the advanced magic potion, first, you must understand that each breathing technique corresponds to a different magic potion. Fortunately, you practice the widely disseminated giant bear breathing technique, so relatively speaking, the corresponding advanced magic potion is easier to obtain. The method for making an advanced magic potion isn't difficult. It involves one main ingredient along with several auxiliary ingredients, just a simple mixing. But the difficulty lies in finding a good main ingredient. The key main ingredient of an advanced magic potion is generally called transcendent relic, like the one for your giant bear breathing technique, which requires a transcendent relic from a berserk bear species, giant bear's paw. With the aid of the advanced magic potion, the enhancement level of certain or multiple attributes developed by the breathing technique will be exceptionally high. For instance, the swift leopard breathing technique focuses on significantly enhancing agility and slightly strength. And if the advanced magic potion is made from a leopard's transcendent relic, like the shadow leopard's tendon, then, after consuming the advanced magic potion, the enhancement of the agility attribute would be especially substantial. However, if the main ingredient is from another transcendent creature, like the wind serpent, the effect would be somewhat inferior. Rain nodded, indicating he understood what Hamilton was saying. Through advancement via a magic potion, not only can safety be greatly enhanced, but it can also augment the transcendent traits brought by the breathing technique. N/O/vel/B//and.C//om. For example, you, Rain, if you step into the transcendent realm using the giant bear breathing technique and its corresponding advanced magic potion, in general, you would awaken a transcendent characteristic, huge strength, a special ability that enables superlative exertion of one's strength. Transcendent characteristic, huge strength? Rain sharply caught these key phrases, and several thoughts flashed through his mind. I wonder if it could be used in conjunction with my strength burst. It's highly likely effective, but I fear my body can't handle it. It seems I need to further strengthen my constitution. Hamilton continued enthusiastically. Likewise, practitioners of the swift leopard breathing technique, after stepping into the transcendent realm, are very likely to awaken a transcendent characteristic, agility, a special ability that enables superlative exertion of one's agility. But this is not absolute. There was once a practitioner of the giant bear breathing technique who, after consuming the advanced magic potion made from a giant bear's paw of a mountain berserk bear, not only awakened the transcendent characteristic huge strength, he also awakened a rare transcendent characteristic, thick skin, a special transcendent characteristic that combines mysterious side energy particles. At this point, Hamilton showed a look of longing. Rain was also surprised. Could one actually awaken two transcendent characteristics? This was clearly not due to the breathing method, leaving only two other reasons. Either it was due to individual physiological differences, or it was because of differences in the main ingredient of the advancement magic potion. Perhaps it was both. After all, the differences between people can sometimes be greater than anything else. And bear-like transcendent creatures definitely aren't limited to just one or two types. There should be many varieties. Moreover, Rain then thought of something related to what Hamilton had just mentioned about the special transcendent characteristics of mysterious side energy particles. That, sir, the ferocious werewolf we hunted down last time, was the light blue airflow around it what you were referring to as some special transcendent characteristic of mysterious side energy particles? Hamilton looked at Rain with approval and said, "Smart. Indeed it is. That werewolf possessed a special innate ability named Rift. The innate abilities of monsters are the same as our human knight's transcendent characteristics, just termed differently to distinguish between humans and other creatures. This innate ability not only enhances their movement speed, but also strengthens their slashing effect, a desired transcendent characteristic for those specializing in assassination and scouting." Lord Hamilton, since there are people who have awakened two transcendent characteristics, Are there people who have awakened 3? Rain asked again. Given Hamilton's interest, Rain naturally took the opportunity to ask more. Haha, of course there are, but most often it is because the breathing method they practice is extraordinary, and these breathing methods are usually possessed by deeply rooted noble families. Perhaps in the entire Meister County, only the Habus Earl family might have them. However, Rain, the widespread dissemination of breathing methods also means that the difficulty of finding or buying advancement magic potions is greatly reduced, which isn't really a bad thing for most people. Hamilton said seriously, looking at Rain. Is that so? Isn't it better for the breathing method to be rarer, more powerful, and harder to practice? What kind of logic is this? Rain felt a bit confused after hearing this. Hamilton didn't keep him in suspense and continued explaining. For example, there was once a powerful breathing method called the Thunderbird breathing technique, which was a hereditary breathing method of a certain hereditary marquis family in the Empire. But do you know? The main ingredient required for its advancement magic potion is Thunderbird wings. Over the past 1,000 years, as Thunderbirds gradually became harder to find, naturally, Thunderbird wings also became unobtainable. Thus, the family's stockpile of Thunderbird wings has continually been depleted for advancing this breathing method. Several hundred years ago, as the stockpile of Thunderbird wings ran out, no one has been able to successfully advance in this breathing method since. Hamilton showed a hint of regret as he spoke. So it is the higher the level of the breathing method, the more stringent the requirements for the advancement magic potion. Whereas the more common breathing methods, though less powerful compared to higher-level ones, have a high substitutability for the main ingredients of their advancement magic potions, making them easy to find. Rain pondered for a moment and then summarized. Exactly, that's right. Hamilton nodded. So, for the common folk's offspring aspiring to achieve transcendence, practicing a common night breathing method isn't a bad thing at all. Ding! Host has listened to Transcendent Secrets, triggering the advanced job change. Night Transcendent. Prerequisites for advancing to Night Transcendent include 1. Any night breathing method LV5 or above. 2. Strength 12 points or more, Agility 12 points or more, Constitution 12 points or more. 3. Any riding technique LV3 or above, Shield Defense LV3 or above, any archery LV3 or above, any close combat skill LV4 or above. For a corresponding advancement magic potion. Current conditions not met. Advancement to Night Transcendent failed. What? This works too. Rain read through the sudden system prompt several times, feeling both surprised and delighted. He hadn't expected that merely listening to Hamilton's explanations about advancement magic potions and transcendence could yield such a discovery. It had directly triggered his job advancement information. Looking at the conditions, advancing my job change to Night doesn't seem to require having the Night Attendant job panel. I had been worried that I would need to change my job to Night Attendant first before triggering the night job change. Now it seems like I was worried for nothing. The primary condition is Night Breathing Method LV5, right? Indeed, with successful practice of the breathing method along with advancement magic potions, advancing to Night does seem logical. Rain? Hamilton, seeing Rain staring blankly on the spot, couldn't help but tease with a smile. Could it be that you've heard too much about transcendence and are having a hard time accepting it? No way. I hope you would talk even more. But those words Rain could only think to himself. Of course not, Lord Hamilton. I'm very grateful for your guidance today. I hope you can continue to mentor me in the days to come. Rain bowed slightly to express his gratitude. Today, Hamilton's explanation resolved many doubts in Rain's mind. Just as Hamilton was about to say something, suddenly, urgent knocking sounds came from the door. Please come in. Hamilton straightened his face and looked towards the door. Lord Hamilton, Viscount Hamadi, the sheriff of the county town, requests your immediate presence in the county town. A messenger came in and reported. Hamilton nodded, then turned to Rain and said, Rain, it seems our talk will have to wait until next time. By the way, you should join Waylowin's squad first. He'll arrange your daily tasks. Waylowin has complained to me several times, asking why I haven't processed your onboarding yet. Yes, Lord Hamilton. Captain Waylowin and I are also quite familiar. I'm delighted to be able to join his squad. Rain stood up and said with a smile. After leaving Lord Hamilton's office, Rain found Waylowin at the training ground behind the administrative hall. When Waylowin heard that Rain had officially joined and was even assigned to his squad, his face lit up with joy. He slapped Rain heavily on the shoulder and said with a laugh, "Ah, excellent. I've finally waited for you. Rain, you have no idea how many times I've talked to Lord Hamilton. Captain Waylowin, when do I join your night patrols? Do we start tonight?" Rain proactively asked. "No need to rush. Let's start tomorrow. Go home today, get ready, and give your family a heads up." "Yeah, okay." Rain nodded. Back at home, Rain was alone in his room, deeply contemplating. His initial idea of joining the night watchman was to have protection in his weaker hours. But now, as one of the Imperial official forces, the night watchman was like a great tree. What he needed to do now was to enhance his authority or post within the night watchman, thus gaining access to more resources and secret knowledge. To achieve this, he had to continually complete related missions, carry out valuable deeds, and accumulate enough merit points. These tasks were not the general duties of the night watchman's night patrols. The merit points brought by daily duties were far too insignificant for Rain. Only those unexpected and more dangerous missions could bring considerable merit points, like the previously participated missions to suppress the ferocious werewolves and to eliminate evil finfolk. N/O/vel/B/////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////// continue to train hard to enhance my strength. 2. Take on as many unexpected or urgent night watchman missions as possible to earn high merit points. As for bounty hunting, the bounty tasks that bounty hunters undertake for money are basically a different matter from the night watchman's duties. However, Rain did not mind completing some easy bounty tasks during the daytime when he rested. After all, those absolutely wicked criminals in the bounty tasks were, in Rain's eyes, walking human experience. If there was a fight, it meant that there was a chance for Rain to increase his profession level as a night watchman. Naturally a good thing. Of course, the prerequisite was that he could win. So, after going full circle, he returned to focusing diligently on training and improving his strength. At the same time, Rain carefully analyzed the 4 requirements for promotion to a formal knight. First was any night breathing method at level 5 or above. This was not a big problem. As long as he advanced one more level in any profession, he could elevate his breathing method from level 4 to level 5. Next, it was the 3 basic attributes of strength, agility, and constitution. He was only 1 or 2 points away, and considering that the giant bear breathing technique prominently enhanced strength and constitution, Rain had to think about prioritizing adding points to agility after leveling up. Last was achieving level 3 in riding and archery. These points were also not difficult. More practice at John's farm for riding and some additional practice in the administrative hall's training ground for archery would suffice. Shield defense was a bit troublesome. That either required spending merit points to exchange for combat skill or finding someone to teach him. One day later, Rain, accompanied by Cookie, began his first night patrol. His night patrol partners were Captain Whalowin and the short Mateo, both acquaintances, which made the atmosphere relaxed and led to constant casual conversation. The topic soon shifted to Rain's greyhound, Cookie. Rain, this is a greyhound, right? It looks like it should be about half a year old, the short Mateo said, glancing at Cookie, who had sleek fur, long limbs, and increasingly visible muscles. Not really. Cookie is just over 3 months old. Rain recalled the time and said, What? How long did you say? Mateo was immediately startled, and Captain Whalowin also turned his head. Just over 3 months? Rain, really? Are you pulling my leg? Mateo looked suspiciously at Rain's expression, seeming to confirm something. Not at all. At that moment, Rain came to understand why Mateo might doubt. It was no wonder. Recently, under the nourishment of Rain's nutritional meals, although money was spent lavishly, Cookie's growth speed had entered the fast lane, visibly growing taller and stronger every day. This forced Rain to begrudgingly spend twice the money of his family's meal budget to buy raw materials to feed Cookie. Well then, Rain, you're really lucky to have bought such a uniquely talented greyhound. Once Mateo confirmed Rain was not joking and thought about it, he attributed Cookie's rapid growth to some kind of innate talent in the dog. Captain Whalen couldn't help but give Cookie a few more looks, marveling. Ah, indeed, my luck has been pretty good lately. Rain could only agree with a smile. By the way, Rain, I'll tell you a dog food recipe later that might help Cookie grow faster. It's just mixing a raw egg into rice, Mateo said enthusiastically. Rain was taken aback. This? Mateo, you're too kind. I'll thank you on Cookie's behalf first. Woof, woof, woof. Just then, Cookie suddenly started barking wildly towards a small alley on the right. The three immediately looked in that direction, only to see darkness inside. But Rain, with his dark vision, could already see two tall black figures flashing by at the end of the alley, each carrying a large sack that seemed to wriggle, about half the height of a person. That's Quinn's patrol area, Captain. Do we go have a look? Mateo clearly sensed something amiss. There are two people, each carrying a big sack, Rain said gravely, his mind already racing with unpleasant possibilities. Waylowin and Mateo couldn't help but look at Rain in astonishment, as if to say, can you really see all that clearly? Let's go. Follow them. Waylowin decided to pursue after a moment's thought. Guided by Cookie, the three quickly chased after them. It seemed that the two figures ahead realized they were being hotly pursued by a dog and three men, and in their panic, they suddenly threw down the large sacks they were carrying and fled with even greater speed than N/O/Vel/B//, and SC//OM. Just as Rain was about to take the lead in the chase, suddenly, an orange flare shot through the air, originating from the northwest corner above Rain and his companions. It's our distress signal. We need to get there right away, Waylowin said solemnly upon seeing it. Boss, it's children. Mateo had already opened the two large sacks discarded on the ground. Inside each sack was a child with a gagged mouth and bound hands and feet. Upon seeing the night watchman in black leather armor, both children started struggling MMPH against their restraints. Mateo, you stay here and look after the kids. Rain and I will immediately go over there. Be careful on your own. Waylon instantly assigned their duties. All right, boss. You go ahead. I'll be careful, Mateo said while untying the children. Rain glanced at the two traffickers who had vanished from sight, knowing that this was not the right moment to chase them. After all, rescuing comrades was more important. However, when Waylowin and Rain arrived at the northwest corner of the town, they found that the crisis had been averted. The night watchman of that area had also encountered traffickers, but this time, the opponents appeared to be strong, managing to break through and calmly leave despite the encirclement of three night watchmen. Additionally, one of the night watchmen was stabbed in the right arm during the attempt to stop them. Although the foes had fled, Rain still had an uneasy feeling that something was not quite right. The group selling children had been too brazen and frequent recently. This, naturally, infuriated the Flash Gold Town security officer Hamilton, who immediately strengthened the night staffing in Flash Gold Town. However, since that day, for 3 consecutive evenings, the area of Rain's night patrol had been peaceful. It seemed that the swagger of the traffickers had been effectively curbed. Meanwhile, Rain gradually became familiar with the duties of the night watchman. The night watchman of Flash Gold Town mainly handled the town's nightly security, fire emergencies, wild beast disturbances, and signaling major dangers, while during the day, this work fell to the town guards. As the daytime is generally safer than the night watchmen typically possess combat capabilities 1 notch higher than town guards. Of course, the compensation was also better. A regular night watchman's monthly salary reached 8 Imperial silver coins, while an elite like Rain received 1 Imperial gold coin. In addition, based on the team captain's arrangement, there would be 1 to 2 days of rest each week. Not sleeping for a whole night wasn't actually tiring for Rain, who practiced a breathing method for cultivation. As long as he went back and slept a little, once he awoke again, Rain would be in a spirited and vigorous state, and he could use the remaining time of the day for other activities such as practicing the breathing method in his room, improving his horseback riding at John's farm, or going to the training ground to practice swordsmanship and archery, and so on. Furthermore, Rain gathered from Captain Whalen through indirect inquiries about something. The Empire had strict restrictions on commoners learning breathing methods and extraordinary sword techniques, which was evident from the need to exchange a large amount of merit points. But for the nobility, it was very tolerant. Nobles could teach their followers breathing methods and extraordinary sword techniques. This explained why so many commoners were desperate to become servants or guards of the nobility. This system had been in place for a long time and had received widespread approval from nobles of all ranks. On the other hand, it was incredibly difficult for commoners to advance on their own. Rain briefly assessed the obstacles a commoner would have to overcome to become a transcendent. First, one needed to join an official imperial organization, accumulate enough merit points over time, and learn breathing methods and extraordinary combat skills. Then, continue to collect merit points to exchange for an advancement magic potion. If one was lucky enough to become a transcendent, after being officially acknowledged by the Empire, they could become the lowest level of nobility, a non-hereditary knight. The only disappointment over the last few days was that Hamilton, as the security officer of Flashgold Town, was incredibly busy. Rain had planned to ask him for lessons in swordsmanship, along with a chance to farm some experience, but had not found the right opportunity. Over 3 days, Rain's most progressed profession, the costly dog trainer, had astonishingly reached LV2, 223 to 300. Part of this was because Rain took Cookie for night patrols, which the system recognized as walking the dog. Rain had calculated before that approximately every 15 minutes of walking the dog trainer's profession level experience would increase by 1 point. Thus, through a full night of walking the dog, his experience naturally increased rapidly. The only thing that made Rain a bit displeased was that, as a member of the Night Watchers army in Flashgold Town, there were too few experts in comparison. On the training ground of the administrative hall, if Rain used the giant bear sword technique, there essentially wasn't an opponent who could last 3 exchanges. Therefore, when Rain sparred with other night watchmen, he would use the bastard sword combined with imperial military swordsmanship and then take the time to practice archery as well. A few days passed, and the results were quite good. The night watchman's profession level had reached LV3, 247 to 500, and the imperial military swordsmanship and basic archery had improved even more, reaching LV2, 245 to 300, and LV2, 121 to 300, respectively. Before he realized it, 3 days had passed. Today, as dawn broke, Rain finished a night of patrol and had not been home long before he received a notification from the guards. Lord Hamilton requested his presence. Rain thought for a moment, then took his great sword wrapped in sheepskin, donned the night watchman's black, standard leather armor, and headed to the town's administrative hall. In the office, Hamilton handed Rain a sheepskin scroll. For this mission, we have to go personally. Rain took the scroll and skillfully flipped through it, starting with the mission description. Multiple miners had gone missing at the Alim mine, and the 3 bounty hunters who went to investigate had since vanished without a trace. As of yesterday, the number of missing miners had exceeded 10, and the miners at Alim mine were all terrified. Not a single one dared to go down to work again, forcing the mine to close and OVL be //JNN. Alim mine? I seem to have heard news of incidents there before. I didn't expect it to still be unresolved. The current situation, it's clearly gotten more serious. Rain immediately remembered hearing related news about the Alim mine from Hamilton. Continuing to browse through the case file, the end of the scroll only had 1 sentence about the mission requirement. What exactly happened inside Alim mine? This is an investigation mission? Rain looked at Hamilton in surprise. Normally, the official Imperial forces wouldn't get involved in mere investigations. These are usually handled through bounties, leaving bounty hunters to complete them more often. But this time was different. With the Flashgold Town Sheriff Hamilton himself taking action, Rain faintly felt the significance of the Alim gold mine. Hamilton's following words confirmed Rain's guess. Though the output of the Alim mine has been declining year by year, its importance to Meister County remains significant. The higher-ups have asked me to figure out what happened in Alim mine as soon as possible. In addition, although this is just an investigative mission, a mysterious event most likely occurred. Hamilton's expression became serious. A mysterious event? Rain pondered these words. Correct. The disappearance of the 3 bounty hunters, including one experienced monster hunter, can now be classified as a mysterious event. This means it's possible that monsters or some kind of supernatural forces appeared in the mine. Lord, if it's monsters, why not offer a bounty for monster hunters to take care of it? Of course, I'm just curious, not afraid, Rain asked. After all, it was Hamilton who told him that if he wanted to buy berserker bear meat, he could find monster hunters in County Town. That's because one of the bounty hunters, Nedved, was himself an experienced monster hunter. His disappearance has led to no monster hunters in County Town willing to take on this task. After listening to Hamilton explain the circumstances, Rain nodded. The disappearance of 3 bounty hunters, one of whom was an experienced monster hunter, gave him a foreboding sense of unease. Lord Hamilton, what do you think might have happened inside the mine? Rain couldn't help asking, since Hamilton, with his broad experience, would likely have a judgment about the possible situation. Hamilton pondered for a moment and said, Initially, I wondered if gnolls had appeared in a lean mine, but gnolls are not strong fighters, and they usually come in large numbers. Yet so far, there are no reports of any sightings of gnolls. Furthermore, the disappearance of 3 experienced bounty hunters suggests that the likelihood of gnolls being the creatures inside is slim. Therefore, I suspect that there's a type of monster adept at lurking and ambushing inside the mine. For instance, the venom-tail scorpion excels at stealth and sneak attacks, and it also particularly favors the dark and damp environment of mines. If it strikes a miner or bounty hunter during an attack, it can swiftly deliver a fatal blow without a sound. Not even a scream would be heard. Of course, it could also be other ambush-preferring creatures, such as troglodytes and so on. It's still too soon to say. Heeding Hamilton's reasoned analysis, Rain nodded, feeling somewhat less worried. With his experienced superior leading the team, safety shouldn't be a big concern. Rain, you were planning to earn more merit points to exchange for advanced magic potions, right? This might be a good opportunity, as tasks involving mysterious events typically offer 3 to 5 times the merit points of ordinary tasks, or even more. Additionally, if the monsters are easy to deal with, we can eliminate them directly, and that would mean even more merit points, Hamilton said to Rain with a smile. Rain raised an eyebrow at the news and chuckled as well. In fact, Hamilton needn't have called for him. If Rain had known how rewarding the mission was, he would have volunteered to join on his own. Rain was very much aware that he didn't need to wait half a year more to accumulate experience, as Hamilton had suggested. If all went well, in about a month or 2, he could meet all the conditions for a knight's promotion, except for the advanced magic potion. So, Rain was in urgent need of merit points to exchange for the advanced magic potion. Although this mission entailed a certain degree of danger, with Hamilton, a certified knight, leading the team, the risks should be relatively manageable. Rain felt that as long as he was careful, there shouldn't be any major problems. That would be best. By the way, my lord, when do we depart? We'll set out once everyone has arrived. The county town has sent some people over, too. We'll leave together once they're here. Also, I've had Whalewin and the others prepare some antidotes, ropes, fishing nets, and the like. Rain, if you have anything you need to get ready, you still have time to prepare. Yes, my lord. Rain nodded upon hearing that others from the county town would be joining them. In truth, Rain had most of the gear he needed on him. However, considering the search in the mine, bringing Cookie along might be a wise choice. After all, dogs' sense of smell and hearing are much sharper than humans. So, Rain returned home once more to fetch Cookie. When he came back to the town hall entrance, he saw a group of new arrivals, and Hamilton was coming out to meet them. Lord Hamilton, long time no see. A middle-aged man with a goatee, dressed in proper hunting clothes, greeted Hamilton with a slight bow. Rain could vaguely sense that the man was not weak. Though not a formal knight, he was clearly a knight's attendant. Steward Schmidt, hello. Hamilton nodded with a smile. Lord Hamilton, Viscount Hamadi himself wanted to come, but the Viscount is preoccupied with affairs, so he entrusted me to investigate the situation at the Elim gold mine. The incidents at the gold mine have greatly concerned both Count Habs and Viscount Hamadi, said the middle-aged man named Schmidt with a smile. This time, in addition to inviting the knowledgeable wandering bard, Lord Indri, to accompany us, I have also specially recruited 3 experienced bounty hunters in the county town. Steward Schmidt gestured to an old man with a goat beard wearing a gray hood and carrying a staff, dressed in a gray robe. The old man took off his hood, bowed slightly to Hamilton, and said, "Lord Hamilton, I am honored to meet you." "Lord Indri, hello." Hamilton also nodded in return with a smile. Rain, intrigued by the introduction of the well-informed wandering bard, took a closer look, wondering if the other party might recognize the unknown script from his beast-taming diary. Too bad. Now isn't the right time or place for his identity. Then, Schmidt pointed to 3 men wearing gray leather armor. These 3 are experienced bounty hunters. "Lord Hamilton, we, Faruja, Salim, and Aximu, are at your service." The 3 muscular bounty hunters stepped forward and bowed slightly to Hamilton. "Welcome." Hamilton nodded slightly. Although he was leading the team this time, he was well aware that the Night Watchers' army excelled in cooperative fighting. Compared to exploration and searching, experienced bounty hunters were more adept. At that moment, Hamilton saw that Rain had arrived and nodded to him as a signal N/O/vel/B//and .C//OM. Now that everyone is here, shall we set out? Of course. The sooner we depart, the sooner we complete our reconnaissance mission. Schmidt nodded with a smile of agreement. Thus, the 12 elite members of the Night Watchers army, plus the 5 people with Schmidt, mounted their horses and quickly headed towards the Aleem gold mine, located to the southwest of Flash Gold Town. It was late autumn, and as a group of people gradually moved toward the southwest road of Flash Gold Town, the scenery on both sides began to change. From the originally vast fields of mostly harvested wheat, it transformed into gently rolling hills. The large swathes of trees on the hills had already turned yellow, shining like a beautiful golden scroll under the sunlight. Since everyone was on horseback, about an hour later, the official investigation team, led by Hamilton, arrived at the mid-slope of a hill. This was the main entrance to the Aleem mine. At this time, a middle-aged man dressed as a mine supervisor, along with a few miners dressed in half-length coarse cloth jackets and knee-length shorts, had already been waiting at the entrance of the mine. Rain looked around and saw behind the mine's gate a large area filled with wooden huts, which seemed to be the dwellings of the miners, and faint crying sounds could be heard, presumably from the relatives of miners who had lost their family members. The dark entrance of the mine was scattered with about a dozen small mining carts, and a metal rail about a meter wide stretched into the mine. Surrounding them were wooden fences over 2 meters high, enclosing the entire entrance and residential area of the mine. These fences, made of beech wood, were quite solid. After Captain Whalewin asked a few questions, the disheveled miners indeed did not know exactly what had happened inside. They had only heard strange clashing sounds followed by horrific screams. By the time they assembled a group and rushed over, they only found some remaining bloodstains. After several such incidents, they no longer dared to check on the situation, especially after the bounty hunters came and disappeared without a trace. These miners dared not even enter the mine anymore. Clearly, these responses provided little help for the investigation team, wanting to understand exactly what had happened inside the mine. Shortly after hearing this, Hamilton decided that they needed to enter the mine to conduct a direct investigation. So, 3 bounty hunters walked in the front, followed closely by Whalewin and Rain along with several night watchmen, with Schmidt, Indri, and Hamilton in the middle, and the remaining 7 or 8 elite night watchmen at the back. The entire team formed a long line, slowly advancing deeper into the mine. It wasn't for lack of a desire to adopt a more compact security formation, but because the special terrain of the mining tunnel dictated it. The tunnel at the entrance of the mine was relatively spacious, and after many years of excavation, it was almost wide enough for 3 or 4 people to walk abreast, and there were oil lamps hanging on the rock walls on both sides, providing fairly clear lighting, allowing for faster advancement. But as they went deeper, especially after passing a junction, the tunnels of the mine gradually became narrower, particularly as many of the hanging oil lamps on the tunnel walls were damaged, significantly reducing visibility within the mine. That junction just back there leads to the old mine pit, which had been mostly mined out decades ago, said the mine supervisor. The tunnel we are now entering was only excavated about 20 years ago. Although its gold reserves are not as extensive as those of the old pit, they are still moderate, he explained. The problem is occurring in this new pit. As they went deeper, hardly any of the oil lamps were lit. At this point, the only source of light relied on the torches each person carried. The alertness of the group gradually heightened to its peak. "Why aren't these oil lamps lit? Is it out of oil?" muttered one of the bounty hunters leading the way. "These oil lamps, if they're not refilled in time, they can only last 2 or 3 days. It's been quite some time since then, so—" The supervisor attempted to explain. But at this moment, Rain began to sense something was off. As he delved deeper into the mine, his level 2 danger perception started to frequently warn him, as if something dangerous lurked deep in the mine tunnels. And this feeling was growing stronger. This made Rain tense his muscles, ready to dodge or attack at any moment. "Something's not right. Look at this oil lamp. It seems like something clawed directly off the wall," said the bounty hunter in the lead, who seemed to notice something. He raised his torch high, illuminating a side of the rock wall where there were visible scratch marks. It appeared to be the work of some beast's claws. As everyone focused their attention in the direction he indicated, suddenly, a large gaping mouth sprang out from the junction of the tunnel floor and rock wall, biting towards a night watchman. N/O/vel/B//N.C//N.C///OM. "Watch out!" Since Rain was always on guard, he reacted immediately and shouted loudly. However, his position was behind the attacked night watchman, naturally making it impossible to block the attack in time. But Rain reacted quickly, forcefully kicking the attacked night watchman. This kick narrowly allowed him to dodge the deadly bite. The next second, a chorus of shouts erupted from the group. In the flickering torchlight, one of the bounty hunters shouted in a horrified tone, "It's a crystal stone lizard. There's a crystal stone lizard here." Thanks to Rain's dark vision, he could clearly see the full appearance of the attacker. This creature, known as the crystal lizard, was 3 to 4 meters long, with thick skin that felt like dotted with mineral grains on its body. When it lay at the intersection of the ground and the rock wall in the gold mine tunnel, it was incredibly hard to distinguish. No wonder Cookie, just now, was completely unaware of its presence. At this moment, he was barking furiously at the crystal lizard. Although Rain kicked the night watchman companion aside, the crystal lizard swung its long tail, striking fiercely at the night watchman's lower back. With a crack, the night watchman was flung away, crashing heavily against the mine's rock wall, seemingly with a serious spinal injury, writhing in pain on the spot. At that moment, the 2 nearby bounty hunters quickly reacted, aiming their bastard swords at the crystal lizard and delivering several thrusts. Ding! Ding! Sparks flew, but to little effect. The layer of skin on the crystal lizard's back, with its mineral-like texture, had a defensive power that probably didn't lose out to a stone of the same thickness. The bounty hunter's attack seemed no more than tickling it. "Be careful. The crystal lizard's back has the strongest defense. Target its eyes or belly." An elderly voice called out from the middle of the group. It was the knowledgeable and experienced wandering bard, Endry, offering a reminder. But knowing and being able to execute were 2 different things. At this moment, only a few, including the knight being squeezed in the middle of the group, Lord Hamilton, could do it. Rain also had a tough time, as using a dual-handed greatsword to poke eyes was incomparably more difficult than using a one-handed sword. In the dim and narrow mine tunnel, the crystal lizard moved not slowly. Though not as fast as a cheetah, it was not much different from a wild boar in speed. Trying to hit the creature's walnut-sized eyes with the long sword in hand was easier said than done. As for the belly, that was even harder. It required flipping over the entire crystal lizard. Considering its length was not long, but its muscles were tight and its skin tough and thick, it probably weighed quite a bit. Rain estimated its weight to be no less than 600 or 700 pounds. So even though they knew who the opponent was and its weak points, the 3 bounty hunters at the forefront had no way of dealing with it for the time being. allowing the crystal lizard to continue inflicting injuries on two elites of the Night Watchman. After a bit of chaos, everyone began to regain their senses and started to draw their long swords, aiming at the crystal lizard. Seeing that its sneak attack had failed, and there was no opportunity to exploit at this moment, the crystal lizard swiftly turned 180 degrees and, flicking its tail, escaped deeper into the mine. Chase it. Don't let it get away. If the crystal lizard managed to escape successfully, considering its ability to hide, it would be extremely difficult to find it again. Rain, at the front of the group, leaped forward and slid his fine steel great sword under the crystal lizard. Then with both hands, he gave a hefty heave, actually flipping the 600 or 700 pounds of the crystal lizard into midair. The force of this heave was skillfully managed by Rain, flipping the body of the crystal lizard just at 90 degrees, exposing its soft, gray-white underbelly in front of Rain. If anyone could see the crystal lizard's front at this moment, they would notice the rare panic in its walnut-sized eyes, and its strong limbs, now quite helplessly flailing in midair. Swoosh! A silver arc flashed by. The relatively soft belly of the crystal lizard was slashed open, leaving a narrow gash over a meter long. A stream of pale green, fluorescent blood gushed out instantly. Right after, the crystal lizard heavily crashed to the ground, a large pool of pale green fluorescent blood spreading beneath it. It struggled a few times before becoming motionless. This scene caused the three bounty hunters to look at Rain with newfound respect. Originally, when they had first entered the mine, they assumed that Rain, with his youthful face, must be a new night watchman, inexperienced and knowing very little. Hence, the trio felt no desire to engage in conversation with him and had hardly spoken to Rain throughout. But an expert is revealed as soon as they act. If it were them, trying to flip a 600 to 700 pound crystal lizard with a double-handed lift would be impossible, even with pre-accumulated force, not to mention doing so with the swiftness and grace that Rain did. It was clear that this young night watchman was no novice but a highly skilled master. At this moment, Hamilton, Endry, and Schmidt finally squeezed from the middle to the front of the group. Upon seeing Rain kill the crystal lizard on the spot, Hamilton couldn't help but smile, stepping forward and clapping Rain's shoulder. Well done. Schmidt looked Rain up and down, then smiled and said to Hamilton, Lord Hamilton, could we consider this investigative mission concluded? It seems that the culprit behind the incidents at Elim Mine has been found and taken care of by one of your men. I can return to County Town as soon as possible and relay the good news to the Earl and Baron. The wandering bard, Endry, holding his wooden staff, approached the crystal lizard. He squatted down to take a closer look and said, So it truly is the exceedingly rare crystal lizard. No wonder many of the miners fell victim without even a chance to cry out. Crystal lizards generally lie in wait silently before ambushing their prey. They prefer environments like this human mine, n/o/vel/b/c//om. They have a strong sense of territory. Generally, you'll find only one in any given mine. However, it's become rare to see these creatures nowadays. This crystal lizard could fetch a very nice price. Lord Hamilton, the blood of the crystal lizard is of some use to me. May I purchase some? Hamilton glanced at Rain. Seeing no objection from him, he smiled and said, Of course, Master Endry, no problem at all. But, as Schmidt has mentioned, shall we leave the mine first? Ah, of course. Endry laughed heartily. So, for elite night watchmen carrying the crystal lizard led the way. Hamilton and the others remained in the middle of the group, and Rain was warmly engaged by the three enthusiastic bounty hunters. The contrast between before and after was astonishing. The party slowly made their way back through the winding tunnels of the mine, spirits high due to the smoothness of the expedition. Moreover, according to what the wandering bard Endry said, the crystal lizard was quite valuable. Whether for the elite night watchmen or the bounty hunters, this journey could yield a generous share of the spoils or remuneration. Despite two of the elite night watchmen being injured, it was much less damage than they might have expected. After all, Lord Hamilton had made it clear before departure that this was a mysterious incident. The difficulty of such mysterious incidents was something all the elite night watchmen were well prepared for. What nobody noticed was that up on the rock wall of the mine tunnel, a pair of fist-sized yellow eyes suddenly opened and were silently observing Rain and his party as they passed by. Rain, while responding to the enthusiastic bounty hunters, started checking the system notifications. Your skilled giant bear sword technique has improved. Experience plus 145. You have been through a battle. Night Watchman professional experience points plus 76. The battle was extremely short. Although Rain only used 30% of his strength burst and swung his sword twice, each strike was an excellent combination of his current level of strength and skill. Therefore, the experience gained was considered quite substantial. Meanwhile, the three bounty hunters beside him were now engaging Rain eagerly, a stark contrast to their indifferent demeanor when they had first arrived, as if they had completely changed their faces to N/O/Vel/B//and a C//OM. Did a troll appear near Flashgold Town? I personally saw a herald, that little giant, accept this task in County Town. Listening to the bounty hunters talk about that giant who had left a deep impression on him, Rain immediately thought of the day that group of bounty hunters entered Flashgold Town, and the barbarian girl with the large shield who was the last in line. Rain naturally wanted to learn more about the barbarians and trolls, especially since several days had passed, and he seemed to have heard no news about them from anyone else. It seemed like the barbarian bounty hunters had waited at the beach hotel for a few days before setting out after receiving confirmed news about the trolls. But today, it had been 2 or 3 days since they left the inn at Flashgold Town, and by counting the days, they should have been back by now. However, for some reason, Rain had not heard any news of their return. Could it be that they went straight back to County Town? Possible. Perhaps these 3 bounty hunters from County Town knew something. With that thought, Rain also nodded slightly, replying somewhat reservedly, "Yes, that team of barbarian warriors is very strong. Yes, but Rain, I see that you're so young and already possess such strength. In no time at all, you will." Just as that bounty hunter was eagerly talking, a kind of high-frequency shock sound, inaudible to human ears, seemed to permeate the air. Buzz, buzz, buzz. A trembling presence suddenly descended, making everyone feel something was off. Crack, crack, crack. Before everyone could look around, Rain and the others felt the ground shake, and the ceiling of the mining tunnel began to drop various sizes of rocks, causing everyone to stagger and struggle to maintain their balance. Could it be an earthquake? Many exclaimed. Cookie started barking frantically behind them, and Rain's mind instantly rang alarm bells. Not good, it's an attack. But before Rain could turn around, he felt a huge gust of wind hit him from behind. Rain immediately rolled forward on the spot, dodging the attack from behind. But the 2 elite night watchmen following closely behind Rain could not dodge in time. Pop! The sound of a hammer forcefully striking a watermelon rang out. The heads of the 2 elite night watchmen burst open like exploded watermelons, instantly splattering blood and white brain matter everywhere. His colleagues, who had been conversing cheerfully just a moment ago, were now dead on the spot. Rain quickly turned around, and only then did he see that their attacker was a giant creature standing 3 meters tall, its head nearly touching the top of the mining tunnel. It resembled a giant, with a pockmarked and uneven body surface, wielding a stone mallet over 2 meters in length. That horrifying strike had been delivered by swinging that stone mallet. But what Rain could not fathom was how such a massive creature, which they had not noticed upon their earlier arrival at the tunnel, could remain unnoticed. They had passed through this area upon entering. Moreover, logically, a creature of this size and build should produce a sound from its movement in the tunnel that Rain could have felt from dozens of meters away, yet the attack had been so sudden and stealthy. Furthermore, this time he had Cookie with him. A dog's hearing and smell are dozens of times better than a human's, but even so, they only detected something was amiss a moment before the attack. Truly bizarre. At this moment, Captain Whalowin was already red-eyed with rage. The 2 who had just died were his direct subordinates, with whom he had been through numerous tasks and battles, creating a bond unlike any other. Unexpectedly, they had perished here instantly. Waylon used all his strength to deliver an exceptionally swift, striding thrust at the creature's chest. It seemed the creature was too slow to react. Just as Waylon thought his strike would be successful. Ding! Everyone was shocked to see that when Waylon's thrust hit the creature's body, sparks flew. By then, because of the falling rocks and dust and the sudden attack, many people's torches had fallen to the ground, and the whole mining tunnel was flickering between light and dark, with most people only able to see a towering humanoid figure attacking them. But Rain, with his dark vision, immediately noticed that the creature's irregularly surfaced body was entirely made of a special type of rock, and in terms of defensive power, it was even stronger than the crystal stone lizard they had just encountered. No wonder Waylon's thrust, even though successful, was futile. At that moment, the monster seemed to react, swinging its huge stone mace towards Waylon. "Be careful!" Hamilton, positioned in the middle of the team, bellowed. Just as he turned around, he saw two of his men killed with a single blow from the mace, a double kill. Now, even Waylon was about to die at the enemy's hand, which made Hamilton nearly uncontrollable with anger. Waylon quickly retreated, but the speed of the mace was incredibly fast, and seeing the massive hammer about to crash onto his head, Waylon had already closed his eyes in despair. It's over. He was about to follow the footsteps of those two underlings. He hadn't expected the monster to be massive, but not slow in its attack speed. The monster swung up its stone mace, as if it were an extension of its own arm, even faster than imagined. At that moment, Rain had just rolled up from the ground and, seeing this, was too late to rescue Waylon. Clank! Waylon only felt a deafening clash of metal next to his ear, but the next second he realized he hadn't died. Suddenly opening his eyes, he saw his boss Hamilton, whose arm muscles swelled dramatically, stubbornly holding a steel shield in front of him. However, Hamilton's cheeks were already so red they were nearly bleeding, clearly almost at his limit. It turned out that when Hamilton saw Waylon was also about to die under the monster's hammer, he burst out in rage, knocking several people aside, and rushed from the middle of the team to Waylon's side, blocking the monster's strike just in the nick of time. "Run!" Hamilton roared. The next second, Waylon, red-faced and embarrassed, turned and ran towards the back. Clearly, his impudence had forced his boss Hamilton to bear the brunt of the monster's attack. But competing in strength with a 3-meter-tall stone monster was obviously a foolish act. Even if Hamilton was a full-fledged knight at full power, he couldn't withstand it. It was a difference in species. At that moment, Rain keenly noticed that after taking a hit from the monster, Hamilton's thick arms were constantly trembling, and the steel shield now had a deep dent. If not for its good quality and toughness, it would have probably cracked. The monster seemed surprised, too, that this rather small fellow could actually withstand its hit. But soon, a tint of annoyance revealed itself in its earthy large eyes, as it swung the hammer from low to high fiercely at Hamilton again. Pop! This time Hamilton couldn't hold on anymore. The moment the stone hammer hit the shield, he was blasted away like a cannonball at high speed. Then, with a thud, he violently crashed into the stone rock wall. At that moment, the fire finally illumined the monster's body. Ugly, pitted stone surface, humanoid creature. Seeing this from the rear of the team, Endry immediately showed a look of shock and shouted, "This is the legendary tunneling stone monster. Damn it, this kind of creature was supposed to be extinct hundreds of years ago. How could one appear here?" Endry said incredulously. Immediately after, his eyes showed deep longing, or rather greed. Endry continued to shout, "Everyone be careful. It's incredibly strong and covered in special rock. Don't fight it head on. However, if we can kill it, we might get the heart of the stone monster, which is a treasure worth a fortune." When mentioning heart of the stone monster and worth a fortune, Endry's voice was particularly high and motivational, carrying a hint of seduction. When Rain heard Endry mention the heart of the stone monster, he immediately remembered the advanced magic potion that Hamilton had mentioned to him the last time. Because the core of the advanced magic potion was the so-called transcendent oddities, a special item that many transcendent beings, including ferocious beasts, might form at a certain probability upon death. These oddities could never be found within the bodies of these transcendent beings while they were alive. But once a transcendent being died, their transcendent traits might condense into transcendent oddities, thereby being preserved, worth a fortune. Certainly, the heart of the stone monster Indri mentioned must be this kind of transcendent oddity. As soon as the three bounty hunters beside Rain heard the words, worth a fortune, they licked their dry lips, eyes radiating an intense glow. The trio instantly exchanged glances and decided to engage immediately. Although this tunneling stone monster was incredibly strong, its attack speed didn't seem much faster than a normal person, and they, with their superior agility, could easily dodge its attacks. Rock guard? With axe and chisel. After a few strikes, they didn't believe the monster's rock guard would hold. Go! One of the bounty hunters, looking furious, pushed off with the tip of his foot and charged forward, brandishing a short-handled battle axe. The other two exchanged looks, gritted their teeth, and also immediately followed suit, rushing forward. Seeing this scene, Rain couldn't help but marvel internally. It perfectly illustrates the saying, "Men die for wealth as birds die for food." The bounty hunter in the lead, truly skilled, agilely slid under the tunneling stone monster. Immediately after, he expertly swung his axe directly at the stone hips of the beast, delivering a powerful chop. Clank! Sparks flew from beneath the stone-drilling monster's crotch, but regretfully, they could not breach its defense. Clearly, this common weak spot in humans was not applicable to the stone-drilling monster. However, most creatures do not enjoy being chopped at their groin, and it seemed that was universally true. In an instant, the bounty hunter's action infuriated the stone-drilling monster. N/O/vel/ B// and .c//om. The monster swung its massive stone maul high above its head, aiming a heavy blow at the bounty hunter between its legs. Boom! Dust flew up, and the shock made everyone tremble. The bounty hunter had already leapt to the stone-drilling monster's back, chopping at its knee joints and back with his axe. Clang, clang, bang, bang. What a commotion! Seeing this, the other two bounty hunters exchanged glances, both spotting joy and hope in each other's eyes. This stone-drilling monster was indeed tall, strong, and defensively powerful, but it was not agile. As long as they could exploit this Achilles heel, they could eventually grind the stone-drilling monster down to death. With this in mind, the two bounty hunters coordinated with the first to attack, circling the monster's legs, ceaselessly aiming for its knees. Sparks scattered nonstop, and debris continued to fall, revealing a light gray color different from the surface rock material. This immediately brightened their eyes. The situation seemed to be overwhelmingly positive. Yet this made the stone-drilling monster extremely angry, and after a roar, its entire body seemed to grow slightly larger. The creature raised its right leg high, paused slightly as if gathering strength, and then stomped down towards the ground with the speed of lightning. Rain had been observing this completely unknown monster from the sidelines. But as soon as he saw the monster's power-gathering move, he narrowed his eyes, suspecting that the three bounty hunters were about to suffer. At that moment, Indri shouted a warning, "No good, it's Boulder Trample, get out of the way." Thought! A tremendous force erupted from the center of the ground where the stone-drilling monster had stomped, spreading outwards like waves at great speed. It was as if a stone had been thrown onto a calm lake, rippling the surface. Only now, the lake surface was replaced by the ground. Even Rain, standing over 10 meters away, felt the ground shake violently. It was as if he were standing on a soft piece of dough that was constantly undulating and quivering, making it hard for him to stand steady. One could only imagine the plight of the three bounty hunters, who were much closer. Although the bounty hunters had begun to flee, the shockwave was faster and wider, throwing them to the ground. At that moment, the three of them turned pale with shock. Fighting such a creature was like dancing on a tightrope. Needless to say, the consequences of falling down and losing control of their bodies were imaginable. Sure enough, a massive stone maul came crashing down from the sky. In an instant, a bounty hunter was flattened into a paste, with limbs, organs, and blood splattering in all directions. Literally a meat paste. A nearby bounty hunter, splattered with a face full of blood, turned ashen with fear and immediately tried to scramble away. But it was too late. The next second, he was hit in the midsection by the massive stone mallet, now swung once again, sending him crashing against the tunnel's rock wall, turning into a mush of gore. The leading bounty hunter's face was now etched with terror and disbelief. His expression hardened. He once again attempted the same trick, sliding under the stone-drilling monster's crotch to escape to the other side. Whoosh! He slid through successfully. A smile broke out on the bounty hunter's face as he rushed towards the others. "Watch out!" the people shouted. "What? Why do they all look so horrified?" It shouldn't be. The stone-drilling monster isn't agile enough to catch up. The bounty hunter couldn't understand and glanced back in confusion while running at full speed, only to see a huge shadow charging towards his forehead. "It's over. Damn it, it can throw too." Smack! Like a fly being smacked, the scene unfolded before everyone's eyes. As it turned out, the stone-drilling monster had just hurled its maul, which weighed hundreds of pounds, at the fleeing bounty hunter with full force, directly smashing him into a meat pancake. At this point, all three bounty hunter brothers had fallen in battle. It wasn't that the others watched idly as the trio died, but rather that the situation went from very promising to total annihilation in less than 10 seconds. It was certainly beyond everyone's expectations. Rain sighed softly in his heart, noting that the three bounty hunters were clearly driven by greed. Had they succeeded, they indeed would have been entitled to a lion's share of the value of the heart of the stone monster, as per usual practice. Regrettably, they had underestimated the strength of a boulder trample. Now it seemed that even a true knight, if not careful, could fall in an instant when facing a boulder trample, let alone the far inferior three bounty hunters. Seeing the grim fate of the three made most of those present shudder with fear, and to say they weren't afraid would be a lie. Fortunately, Hamilton had also somewhat recovered by this time. Only his steel shield was almost twisted into a pretzel, and the left hand that held the shield was obviously more seriously injured. The armored gauntlet was even deformed at this moment, a testament to the immense strength of the boulder trample. Looking around, Hamilton quickly judged that continuing this way would not do. The might of the boulder trample was astonishing. Just 2 blows had driven him back and then effortlessly slaughtered 3 bounty hunters, its ferocious and invincible momentum reaching its peak. They had to dampen the creature's sharpness. In addition, the tunnel at hand was too narrow. Their entire team was stretched out like a long dragon, with one end blocked by the boulder trample, unable to surround it and harness their numerical advantage. Hamilton grabbed the mine's supervisor, who was pale as death, by the collar and roared, "Where in the mine is there more space?" There is. The branch. There's a minecart transfer station at the branch." Facing Hamilton's fierce gaze, the pale-faced gold mine supervisor snapped to his senses and hastily pointed in the direction. "Night watchman, fire arrows. Everyone retreat to the branch," Hamilton shouted. Because the Alim mine was so old and rich in gold deposits, there were several old tunnels that had been mined for gold, and the branch where several tunnels intersected was the minecart transfer station. Ray nodded slightly in agreement with Hamilton's decisive decision, very much approving of his superior's choice. He remembered the branch from his entrance. It seemed to be the meeting point of 2 or 3 old and new tunnels. As he had passed by earlier, Rain had glanced over and, with the aid of his dark vision, could nearly see the area's size clearly, close to 100 square meters. Clearly, fighting there would certainly be better than sticking to this narrow tunnel. With Hamilton's leadership, the elite night watchman's previously panicky expressions gradually faded, replaced by orderly arrow fire as they began to coordinate and retreat while shooting. Ting ting dang dang. Although the night watchman's archery skills were quite exquisite and their arrows sharp, they still couldn't breach the boulder trample's monstrous defensive power. The flurry of arrows could hardly cause any substantive damage to the boulder trample. Therefore, the night watchman instinctively aimed at the creature's eyes, forcing it to cover them with its arms. So, the arrows had at least a decent disruptive effect. Meanwhile, this allowed the entire team to retreat in an orderly fashion while engaging in battle, eventually reaching the minecart transfer station at the branch. However, many of the keenly observant night watchmen noticed that the boulder trample's body seemed to have swelled slightly more than before. Moreover, its movement and attack speeds had also increased a bit from earlier. This gave Rain cause for concern as well. Is this boulder trample's strength actually increasing as the fight goes on? Truly monstrous indeed. At this moment, the wandering bard Endry, who stood next to the Viscounty Pale Schmidt, whispered, "As soon as there's an opportunity, follow me and we leave immediately." This boulder trample seems to have awakened a furious talent, and even if we all attack together, we might not withstand it. Soon, Hamilton and these night watchmen will suffer heavy losses. Manager Schmidt, make sure to stick close to me for a quick escape. All right. Having been intimidated by the boulder trample, Manager Schmidt quickly agreed upon hearing Endry's words, grasping at it like a drowning man clutching at a straw. As someone usually in charge of the Viscounty's internal affairs, he was rather unaccustomed to such perilous situations, and he momentarily felt helpless. As the boulder trample was slowly lured into the widest part of the tunnel, the minecart transfer station, the tide of battle quickly turned. In the relatively open space, the 7 or 8 still combat-capable night watchmen finally managed to encircle the boulder trample and, together with their leader Hamilton, assault it from all sides. Rain at this moment was still observing for any weaknesses. Apart from the eyes, which were an obvious weak point. To be honest, the boulder trample's body was nearly covered from top to bottom with hard, thick layers of rock, leaving no obvious vulnerabilities exposed. Cast the net. While engaging the boulder trample's attention up front, Hamilton quickly commanded. Instantly, 3 or 4 hemp rope nets were thrown onto the monster. But due to the vast disparity in strength, even when 3 or 4 night watchmen strained with all their might to pull on one end of the net, the boulder trample still managed to grab and toss it aside with a single swipe. Meanwhile, Endry and Schmidt had already snuck to the minecart transfer station's exit, looking ready to flee at any moment. Rain certainly noticed this scene. As expected, all the smart people from the county town are thinking of escaping first when things look bad, he mused. Stop them? Rain shook his head slightly. Doing so would be of no use in changing the current situation. Now, he had a tentative plan in mind, but he wasn't yet certain of its effectiveness. However, time could no longer be delayed. He had to act. Otherwise, if these two really managed to escape, it would deal a heavy blow to the morale of the elite night watchmen who were holding their ground in battle. After all, anyone would think, damn it, I'm fighting to the death here, and these two just ran away. Once confidence is lost, I'm afraid Hamilton could fight to his last breath and still not be able to turn the tide. However, just as Rain was about to launch an attack, Hamilton, who was a knight, taught everyone a lesson on what a knight's strength really is. Hamilton, wielding a sword and shield, quickly charged towards the rock monster. Seeing the little guy attack again, the monster immediately focused its attention on Hamilton and swung its over 2-meter-long giant stone mace at him with great force. Since there was no need to save anyone this time, Hamilton dealt with the rock monster's mace attack in a completely different way. Instead of backing away, Hamilton stepped towards the rock monster to face the incoming mace, avoiding the most powerful part of the mace head and, with a loud bang, blocked it with his shield at the center of the mace handle. He took the rock monster's strike squarely. At the same time, Hamilton roared with anger, and after deflecting the monster's mace with his shield, his long sword in his right hand delivered a horizontal slash at the monster's thick neck. Clang! Sparks flew everywhere, but Hamilton had knight-level strength, far surpassing that of the 3 bounty hunters. Although he did not break through the rock monster's stony exterior with one strike, he shattered several blocky stones at its neck and left a sword mark several centimeters deep. The monster roared in pain right away. It became visibly more enraged, lifting its right foot high, ready to unleash that powerful stomp it had used before. Hamilton's pupils constricted. He struck the monster's belly with a shield strike, and, using the recoil from the shield, he rapidly retreated. Boom! The rock monster stomped down heavily. Boulder trample. A circle with a radius of about 3 meters centered on the monster's foot collapsed more than 10 centimeters into the ground, and all sorts of crushed rocks and clods of dirt were blasted over a meter high into the air. Even those standing 7 or 8 meters away were having trouble keeping their balance. After evading the monster's strike, Hamilton pushed off with his right leg and quickly returned, wielding his sword and shield, to engage the monster in combat once again. Bang! Ding! Hamilton was sent flying once more. This time, Hamilton seemed a bit overwhelmed, and blood spilled from the corner of his mouth. But he also successfully deepened the original sword mark on the monster's neck, exposing a different shade of gray-white beneath the rocky exterior. This sight made Rain's eyes light up. Before, the plan in his mind wasn't very certain, but now, it instantly came together with the last piece of the puzzle. And seeing their superior demonstrate such power greatly boosted the morale of the elite night watchmen. Didn't expect the sheriff of Flash Gold Town to be so strong. Endry couldn't help but show a hint of surprise in his eyes. If that's the case, then there might still be a chance to kill this burrower beast. After murmuring to himself for a few moments, he took out a pale, yellow beast-skin scroll from his bosom. From its appearance, it didn't seem much different from an ordinary parchment scroll. However, as he chanted a strangely intoned spell, the next second, the beast-skin scroll suddenly emitted a pale green light and then instantly turned to powder. In front of Endry, a large mass of foul-smelling, pale green liquid abruptly appeared. This caused Rain, who was nearby, to have a contraction of his pupils. Is this a power from the mysterious aspect? But why is this fellow only making a move now? If he had acted earlier, the entire situation would have been completely different. But soon Rain figured it out. The opponent must have judged that the scales of victory were tipping in favor of the Night Watchman, and thus, the original plan to escape swiftly changed to adding flowers to the brocade with a wave of their hand. Moreover, judging by the pained expression on the opponent's face, this scroll must be extremely valuable. Got it? The opponent wants to gain the rights to divide the spoils of war. In an instant, many questions and speculations flashed through Rain's mind. Acid missile scroll? Hamilton, who was in the midst of battle, also noticed the anomaly and looked at Endry with surprise. He recognized at a glance that the object used by the opponent was a sorcery scroll acid missile. Almost simultaneously, Hamilton understood why the other had been reluctant to use it until now. Immediately, Hamilton cursed in a low voice, a wizard apprentice disguised as a wandering bard. A bunch of delicate egoists. Casting such a precious sorcery scroll without giving notice in advance, so others could coordinate. What a pain in the ass. By the time Hamilton wanted to coordinate, it was already too late, and instead, he had to quickly move away from the vicinity of the burrower beast to avoid being splashed by the acid. Go! Endry's face almost contorted in a spasm, seemingly exerting a great deal of effort to control the stinky liquid, which he directed straight at the burrower beast. It seemed the creature had sensed the special energy fluctuation early on, periodically glancing in Endry's direction. So, when it saw the approaching mass of pale green liquid, it suddenly darted to the side with a flicker, narrowly evading the attack by a hair's breadth. The mass of pale green liquid, upon striking the tunnel wall, sizzled with intense corrosion. Quickly, it melted a basin-sized hole in the rock. The potency of this attack made even Rain take notice. But unfortunately, the attack missed, otherwise the burrower beast would have been grievously wounded. This made Endry so furious he was nearly pounding his chest and stamping his feet on the spot. Rain thought for a moment and did not immediately draw the fine steel greatsword from his back. Instead, he adjusted his position to circle behind the burrower beast, seized the opportunity, and quickly started charging. Rain's footsteps seemed slow, but were actually quick. He continually adjusted his steps so as to always stay directly behind the constantly moving burrower beast. As he was about to close in, Rain suddenly pushed off the ground, and the hard earthen floor of the mine showed a small depression. At that moment, like a cannonball, he surged towards the back of the burrower beast's head. Rain silently invoked strength burst in midair, tensed his abdomen, brought his legs together, and stretched them out straight, aiming a vicious double-footed kick at the back of the boulder-trampled beast's head. A 22-point strength flying kick had already surpassed that of Hamilton, the official knight, even exceeding the full-strength blow of a ferociously transformed jackalman. And the point of attack was the back of the boulder-trampled beast's head. With that kick, Rain sent the beast stumbling forward, nearly causing its massive body to fall to the ground. N/O/vel/B//N.C//N.C//OM. But the stone beast, true to its rock-hard defense, took Rain's kick head-on, and with a shaky, slightly dazed head, used its hands to prop itself up, adamantly refusing to fall completely. Rain then used the recoil to execute a 360-degree spin in the air and landed firmly on the ground. Immediately after, he sprinted quickly to the side. This move left Hamilton, Endry, and the other night watchman bewildered for a moment. All eyes focused on Rain, waiting to see how he would deal with the thick-skinned, immensely strong boulder-trampled beast. After all, knocking down and killing were two different concepts. However, it seemed Hamilton vaguely understood Rain's plan and immediately shouted, "Continue to throw the nets, pull the ropes." Thus, the group of red-faced night watchmen strained to pull the ropes together, attempting to disrupt the boulder-trampled beast's movements and delay its actions. After shaking its head, the stone beast realized that it had placed its hands on the ground, causing its gigantic stone-headed maul to roll to the side. Just as it extended a finger to grab its weapon, Rain was already swiftly sprinting in from behind. Leap slash! He chopped down heavily on the boulder-trampled beast's right-hand fingers. Empowered by the immense strength of the core skill, Strength Burst, Rain targeted the delicate fingers. Crack! Rain severed 4 fingers in an instant. The boulder-trampled beast roared in fury, clearly in deep pain. It appeared that even stone beasts felt pain in each finger. Nevertheless, Rain's strike further enraged the creature, which with a violent yank toppled all the elite night watchmen who had been pulling the hemp rope nets. The next second, several hemp rope nets were abruptly torn apart by the boulder-trampled beast. But just as the night watchmen were exclaiming in shock, the boulder-trampled beast suddenly saw its own large stone-headed maul hurtling towards it. It paused, puzzled, for it had not even reached its hammer. A muscular little fellow was brandishing a gigantic stone-headed maul that was even taller than himself, striking the boulder-trampled beast's head fiercely. Boom! The beast, caught off guard, was sent staggering back 3 steps by the forceful blow. Each step shattered the mine's long-compacted ground, demonstrating how heavy and powerful the boulder-trampled beast was. But it also showed the incredible strength of Rain's hammer strike. Perhaps due to some specialization with hammers, Rain clasped the handle with both hands, still barely managing to grip the large stone-headed maul. Yet he swung it as if it were strangely familiar. He wielded this massive hammer with ease that belied the effort expected, yet its power was undiminished. This spectacle instantly made all the night watchmen's faces flush with excitement. They were thrilled to the point of nearly breaking into applause. Let's not forget, Rain was one of their own. Hamilton watched with continuous admiration. He had tested Rain's strength and knew that Rain was not an official knight. But at the moment, Rain's strength seemed even greater than his. Could it be some inherent talent? He would need to have a good talk with the young man Rain later. Boom! While the beast was dazed by the impact, Rain delivered another hammer blow right to the boulder-trampled beast's head, instantly stunning it. Boom! Boom! After several more blows, the boulder-trampled beast finally fell, collapsing onto its back. Bang! A cloud of dust rose from the ground. But Rain knew that the beast had merely fainted, not died. He dropped the stone-headed maul and turned to pull out the dual-handed greatsword planted in the ground nearby, charging straight for the beast's head. Leap slash! Rain leaped high, exerting all his strength, aimed for the deep sword mark left by Hamilton on the neck, and chopped down hard. Crack! The beheading was a success. The boulder-trampled beast's body and head were severed. Rain was also drenched in sweat. His muscles returned to normal, gasping for air, looking completely drained. No wonder. This was the side effect of using Strength Burst with full force, and now Rain's muscles ached and his combat ability was significantly weakened. However, it was then that Rain realized this boulder trample beast seemed not an ordinary creature, but more like a silicon-based life form, or perhaps an elemental creature. The cut surface oozed no blood or anything like that, its body seemingly composed of different types of rock material from the inside out. Then, the 3-meter-tall boulder trample beast suddenly began to transform, a dull yellow glow gradually spreading over its body, then converging toward the chest. The dull yellow glow started to cover the whole body of the stone beast and gradually thickened on the upper body, then concentrated on the chest. The glow shifted from pale yellow to a dense yellow, and the luminosity intensified, eventually surpassing even the brilliance of gold. I didn't expect it to actually appear. Wandering Bard Indri's eyes shone with blatant greed. Indri also saw the appearance of a transcendent oddity, the stone monster's heart, for the first time. No, to be precise, there should be very few people in the world who have witnessed the appearance of a stone monster's heart. After all, creatures like the digging stone monster haven't appeared in the Imperial territory for many years. The majority of stone monsters' hearts come from outside the Imperial territory, in places like primeval forests and hills. Therefore, almost every stone monster's heart can fetch a sky-high price at auctions, naturally much higher than 1,000 Imperial gold coins. This isn't even at an auction in a place like Meister County, but at the provincial-level auctions held by the major provinces. The worth of fortune he had previously mentioned was, of course, just a way to encourage everyone to fight. Especially for those in need, its value is actually difficult to estimate. Like the other night watchman, Rain was staring wide-eyed at the miraculous scene before him. It was Hamilton who reacted first, laughing and saying to Rain, "It seems we're in luck. Rain, as the prime contributor, you go and collect the stone monster's heart. We should retreat first. Now with heavy losses on our side, lingering in Aleem mine is definitely not a good idea. Who knows if there's another digging stone monster lurking in this mine?" "Yes, Lord Hamilton," Rain replied with a smile and a nod. Facing such a rare treasure, Rain naturally wanted to feel it up close as well. Immediately, he stepped forward quickly and swung his fine steel greatsword at the chest of the digging stone monster. Perhaps because the digging stone monster was already dead when Rain's fine steel greatsword hacked down, the thick layer of hard rock at the monster's chest actually crumbled away like debris. This made it easy for Rain to carve open the monster's chest. Soon, a heart about the size of an infant's head, emitting a gentle yellow glow, appeared before Rain's eyes. This was also Rain's first encounter with a so-called transcendent oddity. He hesitantly set down his fine steel greatsword and took the stone monster's heart out with both hands. A warm sensation with a special rhythm came from his fingertips and palms. It was a strange feeling, and Rain had never experienced anything quite like it before. Ding! Host has come into contact with the transcendent oddity stone monster's heart, triggering the special advancement profession, Giant Stone Guardian, Transcendent. Prerequisites for advancing to Giant Stone Guardian are: current conditions not met, advancement to Giant Stone Guardian failed. Rain was immediately taken aback. It's a special transcendent combat profession. But what the hell does the 3 question marks for prerequisites mean? Does it mean the gap between me and this special advancement profession is too great? Or is it because there's some element of uncertainty between me and this profession? After being stunned for a few seconds, Rain came to his senses, realizing that this transcendent oddity seemed to be of great use to him. Without delay, Rain turned eagerly to Hamilton and said, "Lord Hamilton, may I directly purchase the stone monster's heart?" Hamilton, supported by Waylon, approached and examined the stone monster's heart, emitting a gentle yellow glow, laughing. "I, too, am seeing the legendary stone monster's heart for the first time in /o/vel/b//and.c//om. Rain, what made you think of wanting this? The price isn't cheap, you know? Even if valued at 1,000 Imperial gold coins, You need to pay 3/10 of the spoils to the Empire, which means you need to fork out 300 gold coins. Then, out of the remaining 7/10 of the spoils, you still need to distribute at least 200 Imperial gold coins to others, including myself. Although Hamilton did not know why Rain suddenly took a liking to this, he did not object, merely stating that Rain needed to pay a considerable sum of money. Rain had already anticipated this point. Since the last time he had robbed Hound King Cole, he could immediately come up with 300 gold coins. As for the remaining 200 gold, scraping them together by hook or by crook was estimated to be not a big problem either. Of course, it's only fair. Seeing that Hamilton was not opposed, Rain couldn't help but express his elation. Hamilton looked at Rain with surprise again. He had not expected Rain to want it so badly. 500 Imperial gold coins was no small amount. At that moment, Endry whispered something to Schmidt at the side. Then, the butler named Schmidt suddenly interjected. Wait a moment. According to the Night Watchman's Empire spoils distribution regulations, this stone monster's heart should have 3/10 belonging to the Empire, and only the remaining 7/10 can be distributed as spoils. Lord Hamilton, is this correct? Upon hearing Schmidt speak, Rain's heart sank. Remembering some of Endry's previous actions, he already had a vague idea of what they were up to. Damn shameless, both Endry and Schmidt, thinking of running away when the battle situation seemed unfavorable, and then wanting a share when the tides turned. And now, do they want to meddle in the distribution of the spoils? Hamilton's face also darkened, well aware of the noble schemes. He quickly understood their intention. However, their question was straightforward and fair, and though they hadn't been much help during the fight, they were representatives of the county town, the Earl, and the Viscount, so he obviously could not ignore them. After some consideration, Hamilton had no choice but to nod and say, Yes, Butler Schmidt, that's indeed the case. As soon as Hamilton nodded in agreement, the butler named Schmidt immediately became animated and said, As a representative of Count Habs and Viscount Hamadi of the county town, I have the right to take custody of and appraise this stone monster's heart. Of course, the distribution of the 7/10 of the spoils of war to the valiant warriors will not change. Schmidt seemed to enter a realm he was familiar with when it came to the distribution of spoils, a complete contrast from his previous state of utter panic caused by the mountain monster. It was like seeing two different faces. This made Hamilton, Rain, and the rest of the Night Watchmen feel as nauseated as if they had swallowed a fly. Indeed, it was the typical noble countenance. With minor interests at stake, one could afford to be magnanimous and give Hamilton face, just like with the crystal lizard incident earlier. But when the interests involved were substantial, Hamilton's face obviously didn't carry the same weight. Rain knew that all of this seemed to be instigated by the so-called wandering bard Endry. You'll be in charge of keeping and appraising? After you return to county town, whatever the appraised value, isn't it entirely up to you? Besides, Rain knew from the moment Endry had seen the mountain stone creature and exclaimed extinct that even an auction house couldn't immediately come up with an accurate price. After all, it's hardest to appraise something that's out of print. For a moment, the spacious minecart transfer station was silent. The elite members of the Night Watchmen, although injured, glared at this steward Schmidt with fury. Rain felt he had to do something. After all, if he left it to the other party for safekeeping and valuation, he, the primary hero, stood to lose the most. Suddenly, a stroke of inspiration flashed across Rain's mind. He suddenly thought of why those 3 bounty hunters had rushed to attack the mountain stone creature so frantically. Would the steward Schmidt be able to get involved if they had succeeded in killing it then? Of course not. Bounty hunters abide by the most primitive rules of spoils distribution. Whoever makes the kill gets the right to distribute. Everyone else who assisted can only claim a small share. That's why, under these rules, bounty hunters are reckless and fearless. Bounty hunters, as the name implies, everything for the bounty. Bounty is above all. This is inscribed in the Empire's code of law. Don't forget, you yourself are a bounty hunter. With this in mind, a sly smile crept across Rain's lips. Immediately, Rain quickly fastened his bounty hunter badge to the front of his left chest and said, That's Schmidt. Lord Schmidt. I am actually a bounty hunter. Therefore, according to the Empire's laws, the bounty hunter who makes the final kill naturally obtains the right to distribute the spoils. So, I'm sorry, but this Heart of the Stone creature cannot be entrusted to you for safekeeping, because it is inherently my battle trophy. How could that be? Schmidt, red-faced and flustered like a duck whose neck had been squeezed, exclaimed. How? How could you possibly be a bounty hunter? Aren't you a night watchman? At this moment, even Indri was looking at Rain dumbfounded. Rain's cunning move had virtually dazzled the two men. Rain smiled slightly. He took off his junior bounty hunter badge from his chest, showed it to the two men briefly, and said, "This is a genuine bounty hunter badge, applied for by Lord Hamilton himself, and I just received it a few days ago." Rain's statement also caught Hamilton and the other night watchman nearby off guard. Hamilton, however, had a sudden realization. With an air of, "You sly dog, you got me monologuing," as if he had just thought of such a scheme himself. Plus, seeing Rain making meaningful eye contact, how could Hamilton not know what to do? After all, it's better to have the spoils stew in one's own pot, where anyone can eat. But if even the pot is taken away by someone else, then there's nothing left for anyone. This logic was instantly clear to everyone. Right, I had completely forgotten this mission. I invited Rain to help as a bounty hunter. Hamilton smacked his forehead and decisively affirmed. When even the leader of the night watchmen in Flash Gold Town acknowledged Rain as a bounty hunter for this investigation, what was there left to dispute? This turn of events whitened Indri's face with fury, his body trembling. So, in full view of everyone, Rain cheerfully stowed the softly glowing yellow heart of the stone creature into his waist pouch. Worried about offending the representative of the county town? Aren't you? Having the transcendent treasure in hand. Even if he couldn't use it immediately, at worst he could trade it with Hamilton for a superior potion of the giant bear breathing technique. Right? Then, once he became a formal knight, would he need to fear a representative? Don't forget, representative is ultimately just that, a representative. As for the distribution of interests between myself, Hamilton, and the other night watchmen, that can naturally be negotiated with Hamilton after returning. At least, the spoils cannot fall into the hands of outsiders. On this point, my interests align with Hamilton's. Having pocketed the heart of the stone creature, it was only then that Rain remembered to check the system notifications. Your skill, Giant Bear Sword Technique, has been upgraded, experience plus 267. You have experienced a battle, Night Watchman Professional Experience Points plus 258. Before the battle with the Quarry Stone Monster, Rain had spent a long time observing his opponent, contemplating numerous combat plans. In the end, the situation was changed by the 2 strikes from Hamilton, making all the hard work worthwhile. After defeating the stone monster, Rain had reaped a rich reward of Night Watchman Professional Experience, and the Night Watchman had been leveled up from level 3 to level 4. However, this time the experience gained for the Giant Bear Sword Technique was less. This was also quite understandable. Rain had been swinging a hammer for a long time, naturally resulting in less improvement in his swordsmanship. Nevertheless, even so, after 2 consecutive battles, Rain's Giant Bear Sword Technique level 4 was about to be maxed out, currently at Giant Bear Sword Technique LV4, 967/1000. Rain once again flipped to the home page of the system panel, Attributes page. Name, Rain Carlin. Profession, Blacksmith LV2, 0 out of 300, /Night Watchman LV4, 32/1000, /Dog Trainer LV2, 223 for 300. Constitution, 10. Strength, 11. Agility, 11. Spirit, 11. Remaining attribute points, 1. Remaining skill points, 1. Just as Rain was hesitating about how to allocate the points, a deep voice suddenly came from behind him. He recognized the voice. It should have been Indri's voice. But this time the tone was bizarre, seeming to be filled with resentment and dissatisfaction, making Rain suddenly unsure. You ignorant common folks, how do you know the value of the heart of the stone monster? Why must you force me? You bunch of idiots. Ah! Only a scream was heard from behind. Those who were cleaning up the battlefield immediately turned to look. What they saw next was a shocking scene. Indri was holding a rapier, and at that moment, The rapier had pierced through the chest of the county town representative, Schmidt, the butler. The location was the middle left part of the thorax, clearly where the heart was located. Schmidt shook like a sieve, one hand holding the rapier, the other pointing at Endry, his face showing disbelief. His mouth muttered twice, but in the end, he did not manage to speak, and his body slowly slumped down. This scene evidently astounded everyone. So you kill a companion just because you couldn't get the treasure? What's the meaning of this? Rain was also staring dumbfounded at the scene before him. Has Endry gone mad? To actually dare to directly kill Schmidt, the representative of Earl Harris and Viscount Hamadi? With a calm face, Endry glanced at Schmidt, who was still twitching on the ground, and said, "Since I can't get it, there's no use keeping you. Then you all can die." Swoosh! Endry struck again with a rapier, slashing the neck of the petrified gold mine supervisor standing next to him. The gold mine supervisor clutched his neck tightly, and with a thud, he fell to the ground, his body incessantly twitching. Afterward, Endry raised his head, surveyed the surroundings, looking at everyone with the eyes of someone watching dead men. Soon his gaze focused on Rain, supported by Waylewin. The severely wounded Hamilton, with a serious expression, looked at Endry and said, "Endry, are you trying to commit murder for treasure? You are overestimating yourself. There are so many of us here. You are just seeking your own death." Endry scoffed and said, "Oh, you guessed it? I just observed that you are strong. Indeed, Hamilton, your identity must be more than just a small-town sheriff, right? N/O/vel/B//and .C//OM. But that no longer matters. Hamilton, if you weren't injured, I might still fear you a bit. Unfortunately, in this state, how much strength can you really use? A knight severely wounded, an almost knight exhausted but with some brute strength besides, a few ordinary night watchmen." Endry looked around at the people, giving a gentlemanly review one by one. Rain was taken aback. Exhausted, brute strength, is he talking about me? Moreover, Rain also didn't expect Endry to be so bold as to plan to kill everyone present. Was that even possible? Though I am severely injured, to kill an apprentice wizard like you would probably still be no problem. Hamilton pushed Waylewin aside and drew his knight's long sword to go forward. But he had only taken one step when Hamilton's figure swayed slightly, and his expression suddenly changed. "You poison me? Smart. Hallucinogenic poison gas. This is something that can affect even a knight like you, especially now that you are severely injured. You definitely cannot resist." Endry slightly proudly displayed a ring on the ring finger of his right hand. Hallucinogenic poison gas? Rain immediately realizes something is wrong. The scenery before his eyes suddenly blurs, and he feels a bit unstable on his feet. The other elite night watchmen fared even worse, already falling to the ground like drunken strongmen, unable to stand up after several attempts, speaking utter nonsense. Clearly, for ordinary people, the onset of hallucinogenic poison gas is rapid and effective. In this state, even a child with a knife could finish off the elite night watchman. Not to mention switching to the ruthless Endry. No wonder this guy looked determined to win. So he had a trump card. Luckily, I had accumulated quite some experience before coming here, and had killed the crystal lizard and the mountain stone monster, just in time for a level up. Next time, I must always keep some attribute points in reserve. It seems I've been advancing too quickly recently, getting a bit carried away. Rain reflected, then quietly added that one attribute point to his constitution. Instantly, a warm current pumped out from his heart and spread rapidly to his limbs, filling Rain with renewed strength and erasing the muscle soreness from his earlier use of Strength Burst. All issues with blurred vision and dizziness were gone as well. However, Rain knew he had to act quickly. Allocating points could not detoxify him. It was more like a reset of his body's current state of poisoning, just like the last time. The air was still filled with toxic gas, so he had to finish Endry quickly. Conveniently, Endry's first choice was also Rain. The reason was simple. The treasure heart of the stone monster was with Rain. Killing for treasure was most essential, wasn't it? Endry walked up to Rain, looked down at him with a smirk, and said, Boy, you've got good talent. Too bad. After speaking, he pointed the tip of his rapier at Rain's heart. Oh, do you have any last words for your loved ones? Maybe if I'm in a good mood someday, I could pass them on? Indri teased Rain. Rain gave Indri a slight smile. The next second, he rolled up to his feet, his neck veins bulging as he roared. Ah! Rain's mouth opened wide, and a roaring gust of air blasted out like a cannonball. At such close range, even though Rain didn't deliberately gather strength for the roaring strike, the massive sound wave swept towards Indri like a tsunami. As Indri's face showed a startled expression, his face skin was violently distorted by the blast, trembling. Simultaneously, his eardrums burst instantly, causing a buzzing in his head. The man stood frozen on the spot. Whoosh! A beautiful silver arc appeared before Indri. Rain, holding his great sword, remained in his furious slash pose, motionless. Time seemed to freeze at that moment. The next second, a line of blood appeared on Indri's forehead, running from top to bottom. Two halves of a body fell to the left and to the right, respectively. Indri was directly cut in half by Rain's greatsword. Too much talking really isn't good. Nevertheless, the poison was still unresolved. So, Rain quickly started searching Indri's body. But he was now slightly regretting splitting Indri in half, as it meant he had to search the two parts of the body separately. Quickly, Rain found a palm-sized leather wallet, a rapier hidden inside a wooden staff, a worn sheepskin-covered diary, and 3 differently shaped bottles. After some thought, Rain also took off an emerald ring from Indri's right ring finger that looked like it harbored vast properties, a poison ring indeed. Although he found bottles that looked like antidotes, Rain wasn't sure which one was the antidote. Considering Indri didn't succumb to this hallucinogenic poison, there was a high probability that there was an antidote. Indri didn't possess the physical strength of a formal knight. It didn't make sense that Hamilton could not resist it, but he could. After the previous assassin poisoning event, Rain was not completely clueless about poisons and antidotes. Using the process of elimination, Rain held the most likely bottle and walked over to the staggering Cookie. Rain muttered, "Cookie, you've eaten so many good things. Testing a drug for your owner isn't too much, right? If this bottle isn't the antidote, then it's likely the hallucinogenic poison itself. Given that it's a hallucinogenic poison, it shouldn't be lethal. Letting you sniff it might just make the madness last a bit longer." Rain opened the bottle, held his breath, fanned the wind with his hand, and a light green stench wafted towards Cookie. Cookie immediately showed a nauseous expression after sniffing the stench, and in less than 2 seconds began retching. This made Rain's heart suddenly drop. Just as Rain thought he had made a mistake, Cookie's eyes quickly cleared up, and he slowly stood up, soon walking normally again. Rain was delighted. Clearly, this was the antidote. Rain also took a light sniff himself, and instantly, his face turned green. It really stinks. However, the effect was indeed excellent as Rain's vision cleared up immediately. Without delay, Rain administered the antidote to everyone present. Soon, everyone recovered one by one. Seeing the split body of Indri, no one had any doubts that Rain had saved them. Hamilton patted Rain on the shoulder and said, "Good lad, if it weren't for you, we would have been victimized by that despicable wizard apprentice today." Wizard apprentice? Wasn't he a wandering bard? Rain was startled. Only his outward appearance. In fact, Indri was a wizard apprentice. Judging by his recent need for a sorcery scroll to successfully cast Acid Missile, I reckon he was just a level 1 wizard apprentice. Hamilton shared his speculation. Wizard apprentice? Listening by the side, Rain was deep in thought. Clearly, what the opponent had used was witchcraft. The pale green corrosive liquid sphere was called Acid Missile, and its power was quite remarkable. Seeing the look of yearning on Rain's face, Hamilton immediately understood something and said, "These wizard apprentices vary in strength. However, Rain, you are one of the most talented knights I've come across. Don't get distracted. Stick to the path of the knight. Only knights are orthodox. Many of these wizard apprentices end up neither human nor ghost." "Ah, thank you for the reminder, sir." Rain nodded initially, but his eyes flickered. Clearly, Hamilton is a resolute supporter of transcendental knights. Asking him more about wizard apprentices would only displease him. I'll look for a better opportunity next time. The crystal lizard was loaded onto the mining cart. The elite night watchman pushed it out slowly. The body of the rock beast, following the appearance of the heart of the stone beast, seemed to have had its essence drained, leaving behind only a carcass of ordinary granite, which was essentially worthless, and heavy as well. So, it was simply abandoned inside the mine. Upon exiting the gold mine, the gathering of miners saw the body of the crystal lizard on the mining cart and couldn't help cheering warmly for Hamilton and Rain's group. After whispering a few words to Wayluin, Hamilton stepped forward and loudly said, "Your foreman has tragically died in battle. Now, choose a temporary foreman to oversee the gold mine." The miners looked at each other, their faces showing no hint of sadness. Apparently, the gold mine foreman, killed by injury, was not well liked at all. Suddenly, there was some movement in the crowd, and a middle-aged man with a face full of wrinkles and dark skin was pushed forward as the temporary foreman. Once everything at the gold mine was arranged, the group quickly returned to Flashgold Town. Since the gold mine was located southwest of Flashgold Town, and Rain's home was on the south side of the town, Rain then broke off from the main group, stopped by his house, and soon after, he arrived at Hamilton's office, handing over 300 imperial gold coins directly to Hamilton. "Sir, here are 300 gold coins. I might need some time to give you the remaining 200, Rain said, even though the rules for bounty hunters' loot distribution did not require him to give so much. Rain knew very well that without Hamilton holding off and injuring the monster first, his chances of achieving a successful kill would have been slim. Moreover, this mission at Alim Gold Mine was actually an internal task of the Night Watchman. Had it not been for Indri's appearance, Rain wouldn't have claimed the heart of the stone beast as a bounty hunter. If it had been in the name of the Night Watchman, Rain would have had to pay far more than this. Thus, Rain actually got quite a bargain. Okay. Hamilton looked at Rain with relief, although he was a bit surprised that Rain could bring out so much money at once. He didn't say much and simply accepted it. After thinking it over, Hamilton said with a frown, "By the way, Rain, I have a suggestion that you might want to consider." "Please, tell me, sir," Rain said, curious, watching Hamilton's slightly troubled expression. "With your rate of progress, you could choose to sell the heart of the stone beast to the Imperial Army in exchange for a high-quality advancement magic potion. Although the advancement magic potion suitable for your breathing technique can be obtained using merit points, those exchanged are just of ordinary quality. High-quality giant bear's paw is rare, and even if it's available, the competition among nobles is fierce. So, the Imperial Army is the best choice." Rain immediately understood Hamilton's point, nodded, and began to seriously consider it. This investigation mission in the Alim Gold Mine was initially intended to earn more merit points to exchange for advancement magic potions. Now, just by selling the heart of the stone beast to the Imperial Army, he could achieve this goal, no, exceed it. Because, according to Hamilton, high-quality advancement magic potions might trigger two transcendent features. During his pondering, Rain inadvertently caught a glimpse of the investigative report Hamilton was drafting himself, noticing he had written up to the part about the rock beast and stopped abruptly. Instantly, Rain understood. It seems Hamilton also encountered a dilemma. If the heart of the stone beast were to be included in the report, the news would inevitably spread among the nobility, and countless powerful entities might come looking for me. Hamilton was considering this, which is why he subtly made this suggestion to me. In the short term, I will not be able to successfully transfer jobs with the heart of the stone beast on hand. He who carries the jade is guilty. That much Rain understood. What's most crucial for me at present is to step into the transcendent as soon as possible. The world is so vast, and the amount of treasures isn't limited to just the heart of the stone beast. As my strength improves, the opportunities to obtain treasures will also increase. What's more important, however, is to smoothly get through this period of being weak. Besides, I've already gotten on the bad side of the Norman family, Baron Alonso, and who knows if the Brotherhood of the Wilderness will trace anything back to me. After such contemplation, Rain was suddenly enlightened. I was blinded by the system notification of the special promotion to giant stone guard. Greed is indeed the original sin. Having figured it all out, Rain smiled slightly and bowed slightly, saying, "Of course, that's a great suggestion, Lord Hamilton. I'll leave this matter to you then." "Good, good." The more Hamilton looked at Rain, the more he liked him, and he repeatedly said the word good twice. At the same time, the investigation report he was writing no longer had any obstacles. Hamilton's quill flew swiftly between his fingers. With a few swift strokes, he completed the report on the Aleem mine. Meanwhile, Rain took out the stone monster's heart, emitting a soft yellow glow from his waist pouch, and diligently handed it to Lord Hamilton. After returning home, Anna and Beau, he were taking care of Cookie. Rain greeted them and went back to his room. After quietly thinking to himself, Rain decided to add that newly gained skill point to his giant bear breathing technique LV4. As the giant bear breathing technique advanced to LV5, instantly, a surge of memories about the practice of the giant bear breathing technique came flooding into Rain's mind. These fragmented breathing technique memories passed one by one through Rain's mind and awakened instinctively within the muscle and fascia memory of his body. When Rain opened his eyes again, it was as if he had undergone months of rigorous training in the giant bear breathing technique. At this moment, he distinctly felt a warmth throughout his body, his muscles somewhat swollen, and the fascia within seemed tougher, like a web of sinew, linking all his bones and muscles together. With this, the giant bear breathing technique finally advanced to LV5, fulfilling the breathing technique requirement for the night, transcendent job advancement. Rain thought briefly and decided to strike while the iron was hot. He quickly applied black tongue oil on a few special points and began practicing the fourth stance of the giant bear breathing technique. The movement of the fourth stance required him to do a one-handed handstand, then touch his feet to his head, forming a circle with his body. This movement differed significantly from the previous three stances in that while the initial ones focused on upper body muscle and fascia training, the fourth stance began to aggressively train the body's flexibility, stretching the fascia. The previously initiated changes in his bodily fascia intensified, the threads of fascia fibers thickening, and their connection to Rain's skeletal and muscle fibers growing stronger. Suddenly, Rain's eyes snapped open. It seemed as if he had broken through some kind of barrier. It was like the sensation of a bow stretched to its limit before being drawn tighter and then snapping. At that moment, 3 system notifications quietly arrived. "Congratulations! Your Constitution attribute has increased. Congratulations! Your Strength attribute has increased. Congratulations! Your Agility attribute has increased." This, Rain couldn't help but laugh loudly. It had been a long time since he had last gained an attribute increase while practicing a breathing technique. It was about time. But what Rain had not expected was that he would receive 3 system notifications at once. This went to show that the giant bear breathing technique did indeed enhance agility, but only through the practice of the later stances. That made sense. Otherwise, knights practicing the giant bear breathing technique wouldn't be prevalent if they couldn't hit anyone despite their great strength. It can only be said that, comparatively, the giant bear breathing technique primarily enhanced strength and constitution. Feeling the great power surging through his body, Rain realized he had now satisfied the first prerequisite for advancing to knight, transcendent any knight breathing technique above LV5. And the second requirement, with strength above 12 points, agility above 12 points, and constitution above 12 points, he had also just met. The only things left were horseback riding, shield defense, and archery skills to train above LV3. Then he would be all set. Riding and archery were easy to talk about. It was only shield defense that meant he still had to find Lord Hamilton or the quartermaster to exchange a related combat skill. Also, once the giant bear sword technique steps into LV5, I should be able to unlock the Roaring Strike LV2, Rain thought. Thinking of the Roaring Strike, Rain quickly opened the Night Watchman panel. He focused his mind on an icon located above the giant bear breathing technique and giant bear sword technique. The icon depicted a profile picture of a roaring giant bear. That was the Roaring Strike icon. He looked again at the small text below it. Roaring Strike LV2 requires the following criteria. 1. Giant Bear Breathing Technique LV5 or above. Giant Bear Sword Technique LV5 or above. 2. Strength 12 points. Constitution 12 or above. Note: Roaring Strike is a secret technique and cannot be directly enhanced with skill points. N/O/vel/B//B///. C//OM. Rain nodded, remembering correctly that once his Giant Bear Sword technique reached LV5, he could unlock Roaring Strike LV2. This made Rain quite anticipatory. The power of Roaring Strike LV1 was already so impressive. He wondered what LV2 would be like. Indri also saw the appearance of a transcendent oddity, the stone monster's heart, for the first time. No, to be precise, there should be very few people in the world who have witnessed the appearance of a stone monster's heart. After all, creatures like the digging stone monster haven't appeared in the Imperial territory for many years. The majority of stone monsters' hearts come from outside the Imperial territory, in places like primeval forests and hills. Therefore, almost every stone monster's heart can fetch a sky-high price at auctions, naturally much higher than 1,000 Imperial gold coins. This isn't even at an auction in a place like Meister County, but at the provincial-level auctions held by the major provinces. The worth of fortune he had previously mentioned was, of course, just a way to encourage everyone to fight. Especially for those in need, its value is actually difficult to estimate. Like the other night watchman, Rain was staring wide-eyed at the miraculous scene before him. It was Hamilton who reacted first, laughing and saying to Rain, "It seems we're in luck. Rain, as the prime contributor, you go and collect the stone monster's heart. We should retreat first. Now with heavy losses on our side, lingering in Aleem mine is definitely not a good idea. Who knows if there's another digging stone monster lurking in this mine?" "Yes, Lord Hamilton," Rain replied with a smile and a nod. Facing such a rare treasure, Rain naturally wanted to feel it up close as well. Immediately, he stepped forward quickly and swung his fine steel greatsword at the chest of the digging stone monster. Perhaps because the digging stone monster was already dead when Rain's fine steel greatsword hacked down, the thick layer of hard rock at the monster's chest actually crumbled away like debris. This made it easy for Rain to carve open the monster's chest. Soon, a heart about the size of an infant's head, emitting a gentle yellow glow, appeared before Rain's eyes. This was also Rain's first encounter with a so-called transcendent oddity. He hesitantly set down his fine steel greatsword and took the stone monster's heart out with both hands. A warm sensation with a special rhythm came from his fingertips and palms. It was a strange feeling, and Rain had never experienced anything quite like it before. Ding! Host has come into contact with the transcendent oddity stone monster's heart, triggering the special advancement profession, Giant Stone Guardian, Transcendent. Prerequisites for advancing to Giant Stone Guardian are: current conditions not met, advancement to Giant Stone Guardian failed. Rain was immediately taken aback. It's a special transcendent combat profession. But what the hell does the 3 question marks for prerequisites mean? Does it mean the gap between me and this special advancement profession is too great? Or is it because there's some element of uncertainty between me and this profession? After being stunned for a few seconds, Rain came to his senses, realizing that this transcendent oddity seemed to be of great use to him. Without delay, Rain turned eagerly to Hamilton and said, "Lord Hamilton, may I directly purchase the stone monster's heart?" Hamilton, supported by Waylon, approached and examined the stone monster's heart, emitting a gentle yellow glow, laughing. "I, too, am seeing the legendary stone monster's heart for the first time. N/O/vel/B//and.C//////OM. Rain, what made you think of wanting this? The price isn't cheap, you know? Even if valued at 1,000 Imperial gold coins, you need to pay 3/10 of the spoils to the Empire, which means you need to fork out 300 gold coins. Then, out of the remaining 7/10 of the spoils, you still need to distribute at least 200 Imperial gold coins to others, including myself." Although Hamilton did not know why Rain suddenly took a liking to this, he did not object, merely stating that Rain needed to pay a considerable sum of money. Rain had already anticipated this point. Since the last time he had robbed Hound King Cole, he could immediately come up with 300 gold coins. As for the remaining 200 gold, scraping them together by hook or by crook was estimated to be not a big problem either. Of course, it's only fair. Seeing that Hamilton was not opposed, Rain couldn't help but express his elation. Hamilton looked at Rain with surprise again. He had not expected Rain to want it so badly. 500 imperial gold coins was no small amount. At that moment, Endry whispered something to Schmidt at the side. Then, the butler named Schmidt suddenly interjected, "Wait a moment. What's more important, however, is to smoothly get through this period of being weak. Besides, I've already gotten on the bad side of the Norman family, Baron Alonso, and who knows if the Brotherhood of the Wilderness will trace anything back to me." After such contemplation, Rain was suddenly enlightened. I was blinded by the system notification of the special promotion to Giant Stone Guard. Greed is indeed the original sin. Having figured it all out, Rain smiled slightly and bowed slightly, saying, "Of course, that's a great suggestion, Lord Hamilton. I'll leave this matter to you then." Good, good. The more Hamilton looked at Rain, the more he liked him, and he repeatedly said the word good twice. At the same time, the investigation report he was writing no longer had any obstacles. Hamilton's quill flew swiftly between his fingers. With a few swift strokes, he completed the report on the Aleem mine. Meanwhile, Rain took out the stone monster's heart, emitting a soft yellow glow from his waist pouch, and diligently handed it to Lord Hamilton. After returning home, Anna and Beau, he were taking care of Cookie. Rain greeted them and went back to his room. After quietly thinking to himself, Rain decided to add that newly gained skill point to his giant bear breathing technique LV4. As the giant bear breathing technique advanced to LV5, instantly, a surge of memories about the practice of the giant bear breathing technique came flooding into Rain's mind. These fragmented breathing technique memories passed one by one through Rain's mind and awakened instinctively within the muscle and fascia memory of his body. When Rain opened his eyes again, it was as if he had undergone months of rigorous training in the giant bear breathing technique. At this moment, he distinctly felt a warmth throughout his body, his muscles somewhat swollen, and the fascia within seemed tougher, like a web of sinew, linking all his bones and muscles together. With this, the giant bear breathing technique finally advanced to LV5, fulfilling the breathing technique requirement for the night, transcendent job advancement. Rain thought briefly and decided to strike while the iron was hot. He quickly applied black tongue oil on a few special points and began practicing the fourth stance of the giant bear breathing technique. The movement of the fourth stance required him to do a one-handed handstand, then touch his feet to his head, forming a circle with his body. This movement differed significantly from the previous three stances in that while the initial ones focused on upper body muscle and fascia training, the fourth stance began to aggressively train the body's flexibility, stretching the fascia. The previously initiated changes in his bodily fascia intensified, the threads of fascia fibers thickening, and their connection to Rain's skeletal and muscle fibers growing stronger. Suddenly, Rain's eyes snapped open. It seemed as if he had broken through some kind of barrier. It was like the sensation of a bow stretched to its limit before being drawn tighter and then snapping. At that moment, three system notifications quietly arrived. Congratulations! Your Constitution attribute has increased. Congratulations! Your Strength attribute has increased. Congratulations! Your Agility attribute has increased. This! Rain couldn't help but laugh loudly. It had been a long time since he had last gained an attribute increase while practicing a breathing technique. It was about time. But what Rain had not expected was that he would receive three system notifications at once. This went to show that the giant bear breathing technique did indeed enhance agility, but only through the practice of the later stances. That made sense. Otherwise, knights practicing the giant bear breathing technique wouldn't be prevalent if they couldn't hit anyone despite their great strength. It can only be said that, comparatively, the giant bear breathing technique primarily enhanced strength and constitution. Feeling the great power surging through his body, Rain realized he had now satisfied the first prerequisite for advancing to knight, transcendent any knight breathing technique above LV5. And the second requirement, with strength above 12 points, agility above 12 points, and constitution above 12 points, he had also just met. The only things left were horseback riding, shield defense, and archery skills to train above LV3. Then he would be all set. Riding and archery were easy to talk about. It was only shield defense that meant he still had to find Lord Hamilton or the quartermaster to exchange a related combat skill. Also, once the giant bear sword technique steps into LV5, I should be able to unlock the Roaring Strike LV2, Rain thought. Thinking of the Roaring Strike, Rain quickly opened the Night Watchman panel. He focused his mind on an icon located above the giant bear breathing technique and giant bear sword technique. The icon depicted a profile picture of a roaring giant bear. That was the Roaring Strike icon. He looked again at the small text below it. Roaring Strike LV2 requires the following criteria. 1. Giant bear breathing technique LV5 or above. Giant bear sword technique LV5 or above. 2. Strength 12 points. Constitution 12 or above. Note: Roaring Strike is a secret technique and cannot be directly enhanced with skill points. N/O/vel/B//. C//OM. Rain nodded, remembering correctly that once his giant bear sword technique reached LV5, he could unlock Roaring Strike LV2. This made Rain quite anticipatory. The power of Roaring Strike LV1 was already so impressive. He wondered what LV2 would be like.